While strolling through Konoha, our hero Naruto is pondering the various ramen flavors. After saying, "Ramen is so sugoi. I can't wait to get to Ichiraku's and eat 100 bowls," he dashes the remaining distance to the shop. A bald villager remarked to his companion, "That damn Kyuubi demon boy is so annoying. We should do the world a favor and finish what the 4th Hokage started 13 years ago." Naruto observed how dark it was later that evening as he was leaving the ramen stand. "Oh shit, I lost track of time. I have to get ready for the genin test tomorrow. I need to get home and sleep off all that delicious ramen." He doesn't notice a little girl with lovely lavender hair and pale eyes observing him from a distance as he dashes to his house. Knowing that he won't notice her, she follows him from a distance. But she pauses when she sees that there are people at the blonde's apartment waiting for him. What's happening? Who are all those people at the apartment of Naruto-kun? The blonde was alarmed to see that the door had already been kicked in when he arrived at his house. As he pushed the door open, his heart pounded quickly in his chest. Moshi Moshi? Naruto's world was full of stars and pain rather than a solution. He tasted his wood floor and felt himself drop to his stomach. "Welcome home, demon. And pretty soon you'll be welcomed into hell," someone was saying. Naruto couldn't tell who said what because he was too confused. Before he could orient himself, he was hit by blows coming from all directions. "Wait. Not here. Let's take out the trash where no one will find him." The beating had caused Naruto to faint a little. He felt as though he was in ankle-deep water when he arrived. He started to move through the dim, hazy hallways, gradually realizing that he was outside of Konoha. A sewer. "I haven't been in Konoha's sewer for years. Now how'd I get out?" he said. He was unable to understand some of the symbols. The halls were dimly lit, and he knew they had something to do with sealing. A strong pressure started to descend on him as he made his way through the sewers. He suppressed his fear in order to escape from his current situation. He came upon a huge set of bars with a paper seal on them after walking there. The bars were letting in the intense pressure. Sweating, Naruto stood in wonder and terror. Well, my container finally graces little old me with his presence. I should be so humbled, should I not?" Who are you?" The deep-voiced person laughed. "Not who. What?" Two big red eyes opened in the shadows, gleaming menacingly. A giant fox with red fur and rabbit-like ears emerged as the figure advanced into the light. Behind it, its 9 tails swayed hypnotically. The Kyuubi. "You're the Kyuubi. But how?" Once more, the Kyuubi laughed and said, "You're not as dumb as you look, ninja. As for how, I was sealed inside of you on the day of your birth." "Sealed in me? But why, and how? The 4th Hokage killed you, didn't he?" "Of course not. Your father did not have the means of destroying a chakra-based spirit such as myself. Only the true Shinigami or my father, the Sage of the 6 Paths, could do such a thing. And yes, your father is the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Your mother was a loud-mouthed redhead by the name of Kushina Uzumaki, the red-hot habanero." Naruto hurried over to the bars and screamed at the Kyuubi, "Wait, the 4th Hokage was my father. And how would you know my mother? What the fuck is a Sage of the 6 Paths?" But instead of attacking as it had considered, it sighed as it observed Naruto's tear-stained cheeks. "I was sealed inside of your mother, and before her, Mito Uzumaki, the wife of the Shodem Hokage Hashirama Senju. I have known about you before you were even born, kid. You are a Jinchuriki, just as your mother. That explains why the villagers hate me. They think I'm you. I guess I really am a demon." After the Kyuubi roared, Naruto collapsed onto his butt. "Do not think yourself a demon when the true demons are those that treat a child as a plague. Those disgusting pieces of filth are far worse than anything I have ever done. You are innocent child." Naruto couldn't contain his laughter. "Well, I guess you aren't as bad as they say. I'm sorry you're sealed in me if that's the case, Kyuubi-san." Naruto's apology for sealing it startled the Kyuubi. Not even Kushina or Mito ever expressed regret. They always thought it was normal for the Biju to be sealed, but they weren't cruel or anything. "You're a strange one, kid. Anyway, I would like to see how strange you are, but there's an urgent matter at hand. You're dying." "What? I'm dying? How? Why?" The blonde moaned as the Kyuubi roared, "Stop yelling, damn brat," and pushed him onto his butt once more. "You were attacked in your home. While you were wandering around trying to find me, the bastards that have you took you into the woods and have been mercilessly beating on your body. You have multiple broken bones, a concussion, one of them took your eyes out, and another gave you an impromptu vasectomy. I've been trying to heal you as much as I can, but it may not be enough as is." "What the fuck? I didn't do anything, I know, kid, but it gets worse. Someone else is hurt for trying to protect you. Outside when Hinata, the pale-eyed princess, witnessed her secret crush being knocked unconscious in his house, she was horrified. As they picked up the blonde and hurried off into the village's forest outskirts, she was so shocked that all she could do was gasp and suppress her tears. No. Naruto-kun. What are they doing? It was some time before she regained enough consciousness to chase after them. She only wanted to prevent the kidnappers from escaping with her future lover, so she didn't consider seeking assistance. She was unable to contain her tears when she finally caught up to them in a clearing and witnessed them tying the blonde to a boulder before alternately beating and stabbing him. A pool of crimson grew on the ground surrounding the boulder as blood spurted from his wounds. The Hyuga princess became agitated when she heard the sloshing sound of the damp grass as at least 8 people walked back and forth, even dancing in it. Hinata howled in rage as she sprinted into the clearing and slammed her hand so hard against one of the criminals' backs that his heart exploded from the front of his chest and shattered against the same rock that Naruto was bound to. Hinata noticed that Naruto's eyes were gone and all of his fingers were severed upon closer inspection. The other villagers shook off their daze at seeing one of their own killed as she reached for his body and said, "Naruto-kun. My poor sweet Naruto-kun. What have they done? You little bitch." Hinata also crashed into the boulder's side after a hard backhand. Her body landed in the blonde Jinchuriki's pooling blood. She saw stars and was in a daze. That little demon slut killed Hashima. We need to make her pay too. But another said, wait, isn't she the Hyuga clan heiress though? Who cares? I heard she's a disappointment to her family and even was disowned by her father for losing to her sister so much. They'll thank us for getting rid of this demon fucking cunt. 2 of the villagers made it their mission to beat and stab the Hyuga heiress in her prone position. Only by a miracle did she not immediately pass away from her wounds. Her final words before she passed out from blood loss were, "Nah, Naruto-kun." The Mindscape Naruto asked, perplexed. Hinata tried to save me? Why would she? In class, he hardly paid attention to the timid girl. Because she was among the best kunoichi in the class in terms of grade, he only occasionally paid attention to her. Like Sakura and Ino, he acknowledged that she was cute, but he never found her particularly noteworthy. That should be obvious, kid. She loves you. Has for a long time. But now's not the time. If you want to find out why she loves a knucklehead like you, we have to do something drastic or you both will die. Naruto's terrified expression hardened into resolve. I will save Hinata-chan. I can't let her die knowing she was protecting me from those asshole villagers. What do we have to do, Kyuubi-san? Kyuubi was pleased with Naruto's determination. For the record, kid, my name is Kurama. No more Kyuubi-san shit. And what we're going to do is shove as much of chakra into your body as I can. The process could possibly kill you, but if we don't try this you're going to die anyway. Then what are we waiting for, Kurama-san? Let's do this. The Kurama-san made Kurama angry, but it still braced itself. A light, kid, come over here and place your hand on that seal. I don't know what will happen if this works, but you'll definitely be able to save your mate. My what? No time. Right? Naruto rushed forward and touched the seal. After inhaling deeply, Kurama slammed all 9 of its tails into the bars directly behind the seal. A burst of chakra erupted instantly from Kurama. However, as Kurama's chakra started to violently siphon itself into Naruto's body, a vacuum effect kept both of them rooted rather than blowing away. Fuck, this hurts, yelled Naruto. Tell me about it, Kurama demanded in response. The two were blasted apart after a few seconds of shockwaves flashing out around them and then being violently drawn back to the seal and into Naruto. Unaware of what had happened to the Biju, Naruto struck the sewer wall as Kurama was flung into the dark, murky confines of its cage. Naruto's whole body was glowing white with a red outline when he opened his eyes. He felt unfathomable power flowing through his body, as though he were composed of light. Kurama-san, you okay? He called, putting his new friend's needs ahead of his own. Kurama's voice sounded different, but Naruto ignored it because he knew he had to wake up and save Hinata-chan. Forget me, kid. Wake up and save Hinata-chan. You're right. I'm going then. Outside, the demon and his small, demon-loving whore had nearly been killed by the villagers. They observed their useful work from a distance. Well, fuck. Looks like we just saved the world, someone said. Yep. Too bad none of us thought about fucking the demon bitch before we killed her. Says you. I'll still have a go at the body before it gets cold. A female snorted. That's sick. She was a demon slut. You might get demon herpes or something. A tremendous pressure forced the air out of the lungs of the 7 remaining people as they started to laugh. Naruto's body was bound to the stone by chains, which broke. His body plunged forward into the puddle of blood below. One of the villagers managed to gasp out, what's happening? The demon is dead, right? Before the mounting pressure pushed him to his knees. The others did the same before the pressure forced them to kiss the ground, their bones groaning under the weight. Naruto's voice reverberated around them, oh no. You demons will die soon though. As Naruto's wound started to hiss as though it were being burned, they forced themselves to watch in horror. Where his fingers had been, bones exploded, and then tendrils of muscle and blood wrapped the appendages. The clearing was filled with the sound of his bones snapping back into place. The blood on the floor around him rose up with him as he stood, almost like the strings of a marionette. His hair grew until it hung just past his shoulders, and his twisted neck snapped back into position. His eyes were reformed when he opened them. But they were, like the sun, gleaming gold. 3 burning red tomo, resembling a Sharingan, and black rings encircled his iris. His cheeks' whisker lines bleed, then the blood transforms into a red light that illuminates his face. He was shirtless after his jack was ripped to pieces. Over his body, markings that glowed the same crimson as his whiskers started to appear like tribal lines. It was the birth of the Shinku Arashi, Crimson Storm. Through the grass and dirt, the lone female villager cried out, why you truly are a demon. Me a demon? When you had the gall to beat and torture a barely legal child to death? For no other reason than to sat a 13-year vengeance that I had nothing to do with? Even worse, Hinata-chan. As he hurried over the defeated Hyuga princess, his rage momentarily faded. Her eyes were open, but one was missing as well. Her once beautiful pale eye had turned into a blurry, motionless orb as she gazed blankly at the moon. Hinata-chan. You silly girl, why did you try to save me? Naruto's eyes began to well up with precious tears. Despite healing the few scratches that sat on Hinata's face, they did nothing to rouse her from her eternal slumber. Kit. Bite her. Infuse the chakra you are using into her, now. Naruto was startled out of his grief by Kurama's voice. After a brief moment of confusion, he abandoned logic and just sank his teeth into Hinata's neck. Unconsciously, he sent chakra into the princess's body through his teeth. Nothing seemed to happen for a moment. But before long, her lone eye came back to life, and she gasped as her body arched. Her body erupted in crimson chakra, which later turned to gold and then to pure white. Her undershirt and jacket were also blown away, exposing her developing C-cup chest to the public. As her missing eyes started to reappear, she let out a painful howl. As her Byakugan activated, the veins surrounding her eyes swelled. Before long, a pattern of flowers emerged in her eyes, and they started to glow with a lavender tint. A white mist started to seep out of the corner of her eyes as the flower patterns appeared to be swirling around all the time. Her torso started to get markings, similar to Naruto's, in the form of complex tribal-like designs that pulsed and glowed with a dazzling white light. She had shoulder-length hair, which was slightly shorter than Naruto's. As a whipping wind died down to indicate that the princess's metamorphosis was complete, Naruto stood back and watched in wonder as she floated off the ground. She inhaled deeply as her feet touched the floor, then opened her bright eyes. All Naruto could see was what might be called a Tsuki Hime. Princess of the Moon. His voice called out to her, Hinata-chan. She turned to him slowly. Her voice was angelic, but it had a cold tone that matched Naruto's underlying tone of rage. Yes, Naruto-kun. You saved me. Arigato. Ice and fire, all poised to be caught in a crossfire. Naruto, taking her hand in his, said, Thank Kami. The gesture caused a tiny smirk to appear on Hinata's calm face, and she gave it a slight squeeze. The smirk was returned by Naruto, but when he heard the villagers finally getting back up, it turned into a frown. As they engaged with one another, it seemed that the pressure they were applying had lessened. You fucking demons. You came back to life. The villagers were still in a state of terror because, despite their ability to stand, waves of energy continued to roll off the two, giving the Kyuubi the appearance of a genin. Hinata put a hand on Naruto's chest as he started to say, You call us demons again, yet you are wrong. We are so much more. Hinata's icy tone made the air around them feel like frost. Naruto-kun, don't waste words on this filth. Come, let us punish them for the grievous crime of murdering us. Naruto's bright face was adorned with a dark smile. At this point, the villagers realized they were completely screwed. He clapped his hands together to create a red barrier that encircled the clearing, forming a dome even though it did not reach the tops of the trees. Now they won't hear you scream. Suddenly, Naruto and Hinata were standing in front of two villagers, their hands protruding from their backs, their beating hearts in their hands. The two men gazed at their killer's gleaming eyes, then down at the limbs protruding from them. They both coughed up blood at the same time and then fell to the ground. All of the other criminals screamed and fled in the direction of the barrier, tearing at it until their fingers bled and their nails tore. A red chakra hand shot out when Naruto held it forward. He seized a villager, slung him over his head, and slammed him to the ground. He did this multiple times, splattering blood and mutilated body parts on the ground each time, and then he used the hand to smash what was left of the man into the barrier that surrounded the clearing. Like a bug on a window, he pressed the body against the barrier. The man was reduced to a fine paste of blood when the chakra hand dissipated. A villager screamed, "Kami-sama, help us," and lost control of his bowels, releasing a foul stench into the air. Despite the size difference, Hinata appeared in front of the villager who screamed and took hold of his throat, lifting him into the air. She extended her free hand, causing a bright blade of light to emerge. The blade sizzled as though it were made of molten steel as she thrust it into his stomach. None of them had ever heard a sound as loud as the villager's scream. As Hinata gradually started twisting the blade, boiling blood poured from the entry wound and rushed up the man's throat. Then she quickly drew the blade, almost severing the man's dick as she cut and burned it off. He passed away quickly, his arms going limp as his organs and entrails spilled out. The body was thrown away by Hinata and landed in a crumpled mass of flesh. The lone woman cried out, "Please, please, spare us. We're sorry, we shouldn't have angered you." "Angered us?" laughed Naruto. His anger caused the red lines on his body to burn brightly. "You fucking murdered us. With smiles on your faces," he cried. But almost instantly he was calmed by Hinata's cool hand on his shoulder. "Be calm, Naruto-kun. Remember, this filth deserves no words." "Yes. Just as they deserve no mercy." As their attacker's bright eyes grew brighter, the remaining villagers could only lose their own bowels. As Hinata raised her left hand, Naruto raised his right to his side. While Hinata's chakra arm was white, Naruto's chakra arm was red. Together, they swung their arms forward, splattering blood into the air and smashing the remaining villagers between their palms. The barrier fell after the deed was completed. The teenager's body lost its glow, and their eyes returned to their natural hues. A wave of nausea overcame them both before they could move, causing them to collapse to their knees and throw up blood. "Hi Hinata-chan," murmured Naruto. All Hinata could do was stare into his eyes before passing out. She whispered, "Naruto-kun," as she passed out. Soon after, the blonde Jinchuriki arrived. He was awakened by the sensation of sloshing water behind him. The faint light was still bright enough to temporarily blind him, and he moaned. "The sewers once more? Is Kurama-san close by, then?" The Kyuubi's cell was directly in front of him once his eyes had acclimated to the new light. Somewhere in the shadows, he could feel Kurama, but it was much weaker than when they had first met. "Kurama-san? Are you in there? Yes Kit, and stop it with the san shit already?" When Naruto finally realized what was different about Kurama's voice, his eyes widened. "You sound like a girl." "That's because I'm a girl Gaki," was yelled, and then a tiny figure jumped out of the shadows and violently struck the cage's bars. Naruto was not at all intimidated by the person in front of him, unlike before. Yes, individual. On the opposite side of the bars stood a young girl who appeared to be only 4 feet tall in comparison to Naruto's own small stature of 4 feet 9. She appeared to have just finished working out because of the delicious brown color of her dark skin, which was flecked with perspiration. Her hips made Naruto's mouth dry, and her thighs were thicker than what appeared typical for someone that small. Naruto recognized Kurama only by her crimson hair, styled in a high-sitting ponytail that split into 3 strands, and her glowing red eyes. Her A-cup breast and lightly trimmed pussy were the last thing he saw that made his thoughts waver. She was completely nude. "Get a good look Kit," she said in a voice that was almost childlike, matching her size, but her hips, thighs, and red pubic hair made it clear that she was definitely not a child. She still exuded a tremendous aura of power, but it was much less than it had been. Blood dripped from Naruto's nose as he swung a pointing finger, asking, "Why the hell are you a naked loli?" Kurama puffed her cheeks and folded her arms, her face marred by a deep flush. She abruptly turned away from Naruto, a storm cloud hanging over her. "It's not like I intentionally took this form. I lost most of my power saving your sorry ass and this is what happened," she said. "I'm as weak as the Sanbi now. The Sanbi, Chomei would never let me live this down." "Oi! The hell are you going on about? This is your fault?" the nude loli tackled Naruto as she ran through the bars. She realized she was on the other side of the bars as she started shaking him and causing his eyes to swirl. Huh? She asked, glancing between the cell from which she had fled and the boy below, who was attempting to orient himself. Her hair suddenly cast a shadow over her eyes, and a strong pressure started to build. Are you telling me I could have walked out of there at any time? I could have explored this place? 13 fucking years and I never tried? Something stabbed her in the rear, interrupting her thoughts. As she looked down, she saw that the Uzumaki's pants had a somewhat overt tint that was rubbing against her butt. She found the boy somewhat engrossed in a fog of unquestionable lust as she looked into his face. Before she shot back into the safety of her cage, a slight flush also came over her head. In an attempt to conceal herself, she exclaimed, "Hentai! Eki, lolicon!" With his nose held back from exploding with more blood, Naruto retorted, "WH what? You're the pervert that jumped on top of me butt naked. URASAI. Kurama sprang forward once more, attempting to kick Naruto in the face. Unconsciously, though, he sidestepped the kick, caught her leg, and slammed her stomach against the ground before kneeing her in the back. Before Naruto got off the smaller girl, the two were startled into a brief silence. She looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tiny tears. How did I? Began Naruto. But just for good measure, Kurama kicked him in the balls. He moaned and collapsed to the floor, asking, "But why?" "Serves you right," she said, pronouncing the words. He sat with Kurama in front of her cage after he had fully recovered. He could tell by the dejected expression on her face that she, like him, was thinking about the night before. He began, "There's so much we need to discuss." Kurama nodded solemnly. "What happened last night? I barely remember anything after you gave me your chakra." "Honestly, Naruto, I don't think much of that was my chakra. At most, the chakra that I gave up boosted your healing. It took at least 5 tails of my chakra to replenish you just enough to not die. Whatever happened, it wasn't entirely me." Naruto's gaze expanded. After giving her meaning some thought, he noticed that his thoughts were clearer. In a situation like that, he was more composed than usual. But as he recalled what had happened earlier, that serenity was short-lived. His rage boiled more quickly than it had before. When Kurama called out to him, "And Naruto, calm down," he left his thoughts. He saw that she was holding on to one of the cell's bars. Before he realized that the water around him was boiling, he was going to wonder why. "Your anger is affecting even here now. Such rage is even more powerful than the hatred I can produce." "How? I wasn't trying to get angry, it could just be your new abilities." "New abilities?" He repeated himself. She gave a nod before plunging back into the water. She asked, "Do you remember what happened?" Naruto attempted to reflect, but he was unable to precisely recall what transpired after he woke up and discovered. He leapt to his feet, seized Kurama by the shoulders, and exclaimed, "Hinata-chan. What happened to her?" She didn't push him away, but she scowled at the action. "She's fine. At least, I think. You saved her. Naruto. Don't you remember what you and her did to the villagers?" A chilly perspiration appeared on his face. All he could see were fragments. Hinata was bitten, creating claws out of chakras. However, the blood. He recalled a lot of blood, and his eyes widened, everywhere. When Naruto's vision of the night finally became clear to him, his eyes watered. Kurama. Did I kill them?" he asked. His eyes started to well up with tears before she could even respond. Before he could topple over completely, Kurama grabbed him as he went to his knees. She held his head against her stomach without uttering a word. Kurama held his quivering body for a moment before fighting back her own tears, wanting to cry over such a loss of innocence. Whispering, "Yes, Naruto-kun." Naruto's dam broke at that very moment. Howling into Kurama's embrace, he put his arms around her waist. In the meantime, he had been too old for this position, Hiruzen Sarutobi knew. He felt he had seen nearly everything because he had been Hokage twice in well over 30 years. But it seemed like every new generation enjoyed taking what he called the professor, and repeatedly kicking it in the balls until they asked, "Now what did you learn?" One of the scariest nights of his life had been last night. He was winding down from completing the majority of his paperwork for the day when a member of the Hyuga branch paid him an unexpected visit. The individual was in a panic, claiming that they had lost the oldest Hyuga heiress some time ago and had been assigned to watch her. He was unsuccessful in finding her, and the girl even managed to evade his Byakugan, so he turned to the Hokage for assistance. He was aware that losing an unbranded Hyuga would make traveling to Hiashi the equivalent of suicide. The branch member just looked away in embarrassment, as though providing the answer would bring disgrace to his entire family. The Hokage wanted to ask why losing an unbranded Hyuga seemed more significant than losing the heiress and daughter of said clan. In any case, the Hokage tried to find the girl using his crystal ball. It took some time to locate her because he didn't pay much attention to her. He and the branch member, however, both go pale with horror at the sight. In a clearing close to the village's edge, a number of villagers were mutilating the Hyuga heiress and his pseudo-grandson Naruto. The third shinobi had never witnessed anything so gory from someone under special genin, and the scene's brutality was enough to make them both pause. However, too hardly legal, not even genin yet, children were the victims of such twisted acts of cruelty committed by a number of civilians. Before they started to run for the clearing, it took a few more seconds for the Hokage to instantly summon his own Anbu squad. On his crystal ball, he last saw two kids who appeared to be dying. But by the time the Hokage and his group arrived at the clearing, it appeared that a barrier had been built. Neither he nor his Anbu did anything to weaken the barrier. However, the barrier appeared to collapse as soon as they made an attempt. It was a horrifying scene. Even the Hokage himself had to suppress his gag reflexes when he saw the unadulterated carnage that lay ahead, causing one of the Anbu to lose their lunch. Internal organs, guts, feces, shit, and body parts. The death was macabre. His gaze swept across the area until he discovered the two teenagers lying in puddles of vomit and blood, both half naked. He was relieved that they were both alive, if only just. Although their bodies were bruised, he was certain that their eyes and smaller ligaments had been missing. What precisely transpired in that clearing that they were unable to see was another question raised by that. Who had put up the wall? Naruto losing command of the Kyuubi would have been the most sensible explanation. Kami is aware that the strongest Biju would have no trouble causing that much death and destruction. But even before the barrier was put up, he didn't sense the Kyuubi's notoriously malevolent aura. Furthermore, it wouldn't explain the obstacle. He instructed his Anbu to take the teenagers to the hospital and to keep watch over them around the clock until they woke up, rather than lingering on the issue for too long while he was unsure if they were still in danger. A doctor informed Sarutobi a few hours later that the children were fortunate to be alive. He could see that something or someone had quickly cured the kids of all their prior wounds, even regenerating their eyes, which shouldn't have been possible. Since the Hyuga heiress showed the same symptoms of regeneration, the doctor concluded that it couldn't have been the Kyuubi. It caused the elderly man to become even more curious. He wasn't sure how many more kicks his symbolic dick could withstand. Hokage-sama, I came as soon as I heard. The third looked at Hiashi Hyuga, who was stoic. He didn't come right away after hearing it, according to the tone of his voice. That's concerning then, Hiashi-san, seeing as I sent an Anbu to tell you of your daughter's condition an hour ago. He didn't seem bothered by the remark. Hiashi just shook his head and turned to face his daughter, who was lying in the intensive care unit. Unfortunately, being clan head leaves little time to simply brush off matters for other trivial things. The Hokage suppressed his rage and said, "Trivial? The health and safety of your daughter is trivial? It wouldn't because the village chief would disparage one of his charges with a few words. She is alive, is she not? And as I understand, her condition was done at the hands of civilian. Not even shinobi trained. It proves even more how much of a failure she is. As my father has suggested as well, it would be fit to simply allow Kurenai-san to adopt her as intended and be rid of this obvious weakness to our clan." For the briefest moment, a surge of ki filled the hall, but Hiashi retreated in terror. The Hyuga leader looked at him and let out a loud gulp. Since Orochimaru had left the village 10 years prior, he had never witnessed his leader's face display such righteous rage. For his part, the Hokage merely inhaled deeply and let out a loud exhale. His expression was neutral as he turned to face Hiashi, but his eyes betrayed a crippling cold that threatened to cause pain if the man spoke again without authorization. "I assume since you are to allow Kurenai-chan to adopt young Hinata, you already have such papers written up?" Despite not really trusting the Hokage's voice at the moment, Hiashi nodded despite not understanding what he was saying. The Hokage himself gestured for an Anbu wearing a Neko mask to kneel beside him. Asked the female Anbu, "Hi Hokage-sama. Bring me Kurenai Yuhi immediately. By force if you must within the next 5 minutes." The Anbu disappeared in a whirl of leaves, saying, "Hi Hokage-sama." The third's eyes returned to Hiashi. "I expect those papers to be in my hand before Neko returns with Kurenai-san." Hiashi. "This is not up for debate and failure to do so will result in me questioning your loyalties to the village if the state of your daughter doesn't even bring an ounce of feeling from you. I'm sure Ibiki would love to see just how unfeeling you truly are to the plight of not only your family, but the safety of our men and women in the village as well." Hiashi went pale. Disregarding members of his clan was one thing. However, the families of the deceased could bring it up in a civilian court because Hinata was attacked outside the clan walls. In other words, he would not have the last word on any matters pertaining to the current issue. He disappeared as quickly as Neko did. Pardon this old man for his faults, Naruto, my boy. Hinata, you dear child. I swear to you both that I will no longer ignore how you are being treated. The Mindscape. He was awakened by Kurama's voice and light shaking. Naruto-kun. Naruto-kun, wake up. He rubbed his eyes and mumbled, What happened? As he took in the utter darkness. Wait, complete darkness. Quote. Naruto-kun, you have to get up. I don't know where we are. When his eyes finally opened, he saw that there was, indeed, an unending blackness all around him. He sat on the ground with his head resting on her thighs while Kurama's nude body held on to him until he sat up. Where are we? I just said I don't know, baka. Fuck, you're stupid. Yeah, well, and you're a lowly minority. Kurama stood up and slammed her foot into Naruto's face, forcing his head into the ground. The fuck does that mean? She asked. Ah, how amusing. A seductive voice reverberated in the shadows. Immediately, a chill went through both Naruto and Kurama like an arrow, causing them to squeak and cling to one another. Kurama-chan. What's that? I'm happy you called me Kurama-chan, but I have no idea. You're welcome, but if you don't know what that is, we're probably going to die, right? I'd happily die with you knowing that I'm your Kurama-chan, and yes, we're probably going to die. You should both work on your comedy skit, and for all intents and purposes, Ome wa mo shindiru, you're dead now. Nani? Kurama and Naruto both yelled simultaneously. Before anything more could happen, the darkness behind the two was illuminated by a dazzling light. As they turned, they noticed a shower of feathers seeping into the surrounding darkness. For fuck's sake, sis, you're early. The previous voice yelled, losing its tone of sex. From the bright light came a gentle voice that said, Oh, sorry, I thought you'd be done by now. They noticed that black feathers were now leaking into the white. I haven't even introduced myself yet, and where is your charge? After drifting in the direction of Naruto and Kurama, one of the white feathers touched the area next to them, saying, Right here, silly. Before the light dimmed and revealed it to be Hinata, it exploded into a tiny body. The young Hyuga started to awaken right away. Naruto exclaimed, Hinata-chan, and seized the girl in an embrace at once. Eep. The girl's eyes opened, and the intense red glow emanating from her face illuminated the black and white world. As Hinata tried not to faint, the two voices laughed at the scene and unconsciously gave the blonde a hug in return. Perhaps she shouldn't have been so unconsciously massaging Naruto's exposed torso. Naruto and Hinata jumped apart as Kurama yelled, not to ruin the joyful reunion or anything, but, can someone explain what the fuck is going on here? The Hyuga heiress was fortunate that Naruto was unaware that she was still topless. However, she also failed to notice. Together, the two ethereal voices called, As you wish. The black and white voids started swirling around the 3 and 2 singular points in the next instant. Snowflakes appeared on the icy ground as the darkness began to recede. The rushing sound of the water intensified. Birds chirping and the sound of lush greenery and foliage could be heard as the whiteness began to fade. After the voids vanished, the 3 of Tama, 2 human-sized pillars of black and white were situated between a lovely meadow with a stream running through it and a lake covered in snow in the middle of a frozen forest, with animals playing and the sun shining brightly overhead. A stunning woman with pale gray skin and black hair that seemed to be as dark as the void they had been in emerged when the black pillar burst. Her hair covered her left eye and hung down to her calves. She had a bright crimson eye on her right. The woman wore a black silk-like sash around her arms, legs, and waist, but she was topless, exposing her DD-sized chest. Her modesty was barely covered by a basic G-string, which was held at her waist by 2 skull clips. Another equally stunning woman with creamy tan skin and hair as white as the clouds in the sky emerged when the white pillar burst. She had the same length and style of hair as her counterpart, but it was styled to cover her right eye rather than her left. She also flaunted her DD-sized chest, which was identical to that of her counterpart. She wore the same sashes around her waist, arms, and legs, but a slightly more subdued pair of golden underwear covered her butt. Not that it was any less enticing. The white-haired beauty stood with one eye closed and a warm, kind smile, while the dark-haired figure smirked playfully and a little arrogantly. The dark-haired Shiki placed a hand on her hip and her grin darkened. Sup Gakis. My name is Shiki, and that ball of sexual tension is my twin sister Hikari. but we're more commonly known as the Shinigami and Kami-sama. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Hikari bowed. The two waited for the trio's response for a considerable amount of time. A thud. As all three fainted, the twin sisters watched in alarm. Era? Was it something we said? Maybe we should have eased into the introductions? With a finger snap, Hikari sent a ball of water tumbling down on the three fallen. Before realizing their predicament once more and looking in wonder at the two beauties, they woke up with sputters. Shiki crossed her arms and laughed at the three when they blushed like sheep. You three gonna pick your jaws off the ground so we can discuss why you're here? Shiki asked. With more tears in her eyes due to Naruto and the fact that she was leaving Hanabi behind, Hinata questioned, So you're Shinigami-sama? Does that mean we're really dead? Technically, death doesn't mean as much to you three anymore, so yes and no, you're both dead and alive. Over their heads appeared question marks. Nay, Shiki-chan, we shouldn't confuse them like this. Let's just explain what happened to them from the beginning. Shiki let out a sigh. Why did mortals have to be so complicated all the time? Alright then. Listen up, cause I hate repeating myself. The three of them listened intently. You two, she began, gesturing to Naruto and Hinata. She pointed out that she died a very horrendous and painful death, courtesy of MWA. By extension, you, she said, indicating Naruto again. Pointing to Kurama, she said, drug her lowly ass with you to the grave. Hey. Naruto gave him a knuckle to the back of the head for calling out, she's not wrong, Kurama-chan. Hinata innocently questioned, what do you mean, Shinigami-sama? You made me and Naruto-kun die? A part of her felt sorry that someone would wish for her and her soon-to-be lover to experience such a terrible thing. But she was also angry that someone would have the audacity to harm them in the first place. She was a little surprised at her own rage. Unfortunately, yes. I had to have you two die a horrific death for what me and sis had planned. Hikari's pout was so adorable that Naruto and Kurama had to look into her eyes to make sure she wasn't a Hinata clone. We were going to give you both wonderful gifts before having Kurama-chan bring you back to life. But things went a little out of control. Shiki roared. Kurama jumped the fucking gun, and the three younger creatures huddled together. She blushed slightly and scratched her cheek at their fear. Sorry, I just got a little agitated. Anywho, I needed you two to rack up as much karma as you could in the form of an unjustified death. It was the only way me and sis would be able to pull you to us instead of having you go straight through purgatory and then into the afterlife. It's a stupid archaic system that we're really just too lazy to update. Naruto held up a hand. Shiki gives him a look of mild confusion. Both Hinata and Kurama nodded in agreement, saying, we still have no clue what's going on here. Hikari's sweat dropped and Shiki faceplanted. Era. Maybe I can shed a bit more light on this. A light pun? Really, not intended. Now then, as my darling sister said, we had to arrange your deaths the way we did so we could personally meet you both. We have seen your futures and needless to say, you two have very large parts to play. Unfortunately, you both suck in so many ways that we thought some divine intervention needed to happen. All of them, including Shiki, felt a chill. The three of them thought, she seemed so sweet. The future we saw resulted in the deaths of almost every person on the planet, which in turn would cause more work for me and sis. And seeing as we're on vacation for the next 34,000 years, we are not cutting it short. Beyond the workload, there would be too many lost souls to deal with due to untimely deaths. It would cause a backlash that could even affect timelines and dimensions outside of our jurisdiction. And it all boils down to the choices that you two specifically make. The world is literally on your shoulders, along with multiple timelines and dimensions that even we may never see. Hikari responded with a smile. So the point is, I was going to bring you, Naruto, with me to meet your father. It's poker night, so I thought we'd have some fun. And I was going to let you have tea with me and your mother, Hinata-chan. Hinata was more shocked by the realization that, my mom drinks tea with Kami? Than she was by the realization that, your decisions could cease all existence. That was precisely the reason they had to set some priorities. Hunched over, Kurama called, Oi, what about me? You could have joined us. You're part of this as well. The three of them absorbed what they had heard thus far. For whatever reason, it was difficult to ignore the fact that the future depended on them. Nor were they totally forced to inquire about the future. Perhaps such questions never even came up because of the auras of the two gods in front of them. Anyo, Shinigami-sama, Kami-sama, how are we able to speak to you now? Replied Hinata. Shiki scratched the back of her head and said, yeah, that's where things got fucked up. Shiki gave Kurama a lethal look that caused the little Biju to cower behind Naruto. So as I was taking Naruto's soul, a certain Biju used just enough power to yank him right out of my hands, Shiki said. The dejected expression caused them to glance back and forth between Hinata and Kami. Era. The same thing happened with Hinata-chan and me. I tried and tried to pull her into the light, yet Naruto-kun's newfound power was more than enough to drag her away from me. Shiki took Naruto by the collar and revealed the deep cut on her palm, saying, "But instead of just yanking your souls away, you cut my hand, you little bastard." It was a fairly severe wound, but it already appeared to be healing. In the process, my blood mixed with your soul, essentially making you a Shinigami. Naruto extended a hand and exclaimed, "I'm a death god? Holy shit, that's awesome, Bankai." However, nothing took place. Not that kinda Shinigami. Shiki and Kurama both struck Naruto's head with their knuckles. Hinata began, "So, then that means." Hikari nodded and displayed her own hand's comparable cut. "Hi. My blood made you into a Megami, goddess." The Hyuga heiress gazed in wonder at the real Kami for a few moments before passing out right there. Kurama asked the two, "So what does that mean for me? Seeing as you're a chakra-based spirit, not an actual demon, and your soul was linked to Naruto's, that makes you free." At the same time, Kurama's and Naruto's hearts skipped beats. "See, come again?" Kurama was shocked to hear. "Though your soul still resides in Naruto, you can leave him at any time without repercussions to either of you. Once he died, the seal failed. And now that he is a Shinigami, he has a connection to the spirit realm that allows you to use his soul as an entry point to and from the real world. You'll be able to do the same with Hinata as well." Kurama was the next to pass out. Naruto gave Shiki a knowing glare as he looked up. She laughed sheepishly and flushed. "You're doing that on purpose, aren't you?" I plead the fifth. Era, I don't think the American Constitution applies here, or even exist for that matter. Shiki and Hikari let Kurama and Hinata absorb all they had learned after waking them up. Even though he was pleased with the way things were going, he wanted to know what powers he would have gotten and whether he would still be able to see his father. "So what were the abilities you were going to give us at first?" "You received them alongside your Shinigami power. We were going to give you both a new Dujutsu. Naruto, yours was a combination of the Rinasharingan and the chakra construction known to your clan. However, my powers mutated it into the Shimarugan. Death Eye. All the abilities of the Rinasharingan as well as being able to seal by looking. You can even create and destroy intangible things like genjutsu, make them real, and even manipulate spirits. There's probably more to it, but you'll have to figure that out on your own." Era, Hinata-chan. I wanted you to receive the Tensigen, a wonderfully more powerful form of your Byakugan. But your wonderful soul mixed with my pure blood and evolved it into the Shintensai Byakugan. True resurrection with an all-seeing eye. Also all of the abilities of the Tensigen and Byakugan, but with the ability to return anyone from death so long as you can see their spirit. You can also instill empathy into anyone by touch or gaze. Alas, there is more, but I am unable to discern how much. Naruto exclaimed, "This is a lot to take in." Hearing the names of some of the jutsu immediately gave him the knowledge of how to use them, even though he had no idea what they were. Shiki stated gravely, "There's just one catch to all this though. Your bodies used up a great deal of power when you avenged yourselves. You two are still far more powerful than most, but you won't be able to use any of those abilities, or even most of your god abilities until you not only recover what you lost, but train your bodies to be able to handle the power." Train our bodies to handle god abilities? Is that even possible? There's a history lesson on why that's possible, but we've been shoving so much exposition down the readers' throats, I think it's about time to move the story along. Everyone said in unison, agreed. Shiki and Hikari made the world explode with a brilliant display of lights of every hue with a simple snap of their fingers. For a moment, a strong wind seemed to blow into them, and then everything stopped suddenly. They emerged before a massive castle that appeared to be twice as large as Konoha as a whole. There was a huge set of golden gates behind them. Naruto exclaimed with excitement, "Wow, are we in heaven?" "Something like that. This is a resting point for spirits on their way to harmony, or heaven like you just said. Harmony is a world for spirits to live out their afterlives in moderate peace." "Moderate?" asked Kurama. Shiki gave a nod. Despite popular belief, the afterlife isn't as different from the physical world as you would believe. There are still disputes here or there, but the drama is kept to a minimum. At least, in harmony and the lands between. In discord, or hell as you know it, all the shit stains of the physical world get left to their own devices. I'm in charge of making sure they remember exactly who the fuck runs the damn place. But if you're on vacation, who's watching Discord? Phil. He's the Shinigami avatar that ate your dad's soul. He's a great guy. Needs to get out more though. This way everyone. I'm sure our guests are eager to meet you all. Hikari exclaimed as she swiftly flew in the direction of the castle, her wings suddenly sprouting gleaming. The trio had to do their best to keep up as Shiki smirked and made pulsating black wings appear before following. A short while later, as the three followed the two goddesses around the castle, they were filled with wonder. Once inside, the main atrium resembled an opulent blend of a resort hotel and a castle. Everything was covered in gorgeous red, blue, gold, and silver hues, with the most brilliant ones. There were people of many races, sizes, and shapes, as well as some legendary animals. But as they moved through the castle, they appeared to shift in size with every room. Each room seemed to be a completely different place. After passing through a snow-covered mountain hilltop with snowboarding and log cabins, they're in an indoor hot spring area the size of a small village. After that, they would arrive at a sizable beach area, and so on. All three of them had enormous blushes by the time they caught up to the goddesses at the entrance to what appeared to be an opulent nightclub casino. Every visitor to the castle shared a certain characteristic. Every one of them was nude. Shiki and Hikari were among the few who wore thin pieces of underwear, but at least 80% of the population was completely nude. At that point, Naruto and Hinata had seen enough genitalia to determine their precise size and level of care just by looking at them. Even Kurama had to acknowledge that castle would be too much for Jiraiya's perversions. Shiki and Hikari knew it was done on purpose because of their knowing smiles. It was so precious to watch Naruto and Hinata avoid each other's eyes. With a hand over her mouth, Hikari laughed and said, "Seems you two finally realized your own lack of wardrobe." The two teenagers reddened further. Both of their pants had been stolen by one of the rooms along the way, leaving Hinata in tiny cotton white panties that fit her expanding hips and butt, and Naruto in frog print underwear. While Naruto tried his best to conceal his not-so-little friend, a clear, wet stain sat between her legs. However, if the ravenous expressions of Kurama and a few other customers were any indication, he failed miserably. Both Naruto and Hinata muttered, "Arrow goddesses," simultaneously. "Anyway, since you two bypassed purgatory and made it to the afterlife anyway, we don't have to separate you when visiting everyone. We called them all here so you can talk. However, we can't stay long seeing as you two need to get back to the physical plane to take your genin test." They were astounded when they entered the nightclub casino. People were flying around and dancing in the air on the many floors of the dance floors. Every gender's dances, including Hermes and Futash, were performed in cages. After giving them a tap, Shiki and Kami launched them skyward toward the ceiling, which they discovered was composed of a bright blue ball of light. As they stepped inside, they found themselves in a real skybox, with clouds swirling around the room and the sun shining overhead. Numerous tables were present, including a few blackjack tables. Everyone at one of the tables gasped as they saw the trio, alerted by their presence. Hinata-chan. A woman with pale eyes and long black hair stood quickly, tears welling up in her eyes. Kami-sama, was this the surprise you told me about? Has my Hinata-chan perished? Ka-chan. Hinata threw herself into her mother's nude bosom before Hikari could respond. After her younger sister was born, she released all the tears she had been suppressing since her mother's passing. As she gazed at the scene, Hikari started rubbing her chest and drooling. I'm so happy you two could see each other. This makes being an almost all-powerful deity worth it sometimes," she said. Shiki gave her head a slap. "Don't perv on their moment, damn it." But Naruto's gaze was fixed on two individuals in particular. He instantly recognized a young man whose hair was as blonde as his own. But he was holding an unknown young woman with long crimson hair. But as he gazed at the woman, whose bright smile mirrored his own, tears started to fall from his eyes. Before approaching him, she said his name. "Don't cry, Naru-chan." She was already crying when she said, "You'll make me cry too." She gave a nod. "Hi Sochi, Ka-chan Deizu." As with Kurama, Naruto collapsed forward and encircled the woman with his arms, shedding uncontrollable tears. After a few moments, Minato stepped forward and embraced them both, allowing his son to express all of his pain. Naruto wanted to know a lot of things. He wanted to talk about so much. All he could do, however, was hold on to them as though he would lose them forever. Hinata was no different. Kurama rubbed her arm as she scowled at the scenes. Kushina saw the Biju's predicament and reached out to her. "Come on, Kurama-chan. I know that's you." For a moment, Kurama blushed and shuddered, and then her own eyes began to well up with tears. The small family was thrown onto her. Kushina-chan! She exclaimed. Her decline in power had thrown her emotions into disarray. If she had been in her full power state, she was certain that she would not have displayed such feeble emotions. Absolutely not. Shiki and Hikari allowed the parents to catch up with their kids once the tensions had finally subsided. Despite the fact that we were told Hashirama and Tobirama were expected, they ended up fighting. Mito remained to deal with them on her own. Shiki and Hikari also gave an explanation of their plans for the three of them, as well as the reason they were there. Kushina rubbed a finger beneath her nose and said, "So my Sochi is a Shinigami? We Uzumakis can't help but be badass, even without even trying." Savoring every moment he spent with them, Naruto sat between her and his father. Whether or not they were both nude, like Hinata's mom. Hinata was snuggling into the lovely woman's side, clinging to her mother as she had done in her youth. Hitomi thanked Kurama for saving her daughter's life and transforming her into a Megami, and Kurama was doing the same to her other side. Minato called out to his son and gave him a head pat, saying, "I know you'll use those powers to make us even more proud of you, son." Hi. So when can I expect divine grandchildren, Naruto-kun, Hinata-chan? Hitomi laughed. When Hinata, eeped, and blushed more than ever before, she turned to face Naruto, or more precisely, his boxers, who started tentinga instead of passing out. Her face developed a glazed, hungry expression. Hitomi broke out in a sweat. Not the reaction I was expecting, but in any case I would assume that means I'll have grandbabies sooner than not. Hitomi's antics caused Kushina to shake her head. Well, what about you, Kurama-chan? You plan on popping out some kits with Sochi? Kurama laughed. You won't get me that easily, Kushi-chan. Naruto doesn't. Without thinking, Naruto blurted out, I'd have kids with you. Before Kurama gave Hitomi the response she desired, a fainting instantly, her entire body abruptly matched her hair. They noticed Hinata looking lustfully between Kurama and Naruto when she said, "Oh my." The parents started to perspire. Minato called and said, "She definitely has your libido, Hitomi." All the elder Hyuga could do was suppress a laugh. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, that's usually Sis's job, but it's time for them to return. Once they have control of their powers a little better, they'll be able to return on their own to visit though. Shiki gave a nod. Then we can have the biggest incestuous orgy ever. Hikari gave a headshake. Nay, sis, are you forgetting the orgy from 200 years ago? There was an entire clan through 3 generations a part of that one? Oh shit, you're right. Well, it'll be one of the biggest incestuous orgies ever. The young spirits weren't too bothered by the fact that they could only perspire. They had spent enough time in the afterlife to understand how it operated. Kushina called Naruto and hugged him, saying, "I wish we had more time to talk." The blonde suppressed a blush and returned the hug. You can't simply turn off the sound that was made when your mother literally pressed her large chest against your face. Minato began, "Don't worry, Kushi-chan. He'll definitely get strong enough to visit us in no time. Right, son?" Naruto yelled, "Right, dad," and the fourth gave him a tear in his eye. Hitomi said to Kurama and Hinata, "You two take care of Naru-chan, okay? He's a bit dense, I can see, just like his mother." The girls giggled, and the red-headed Uzumaki gave them a stern look. Also, remember that love is not a finite thing. Once you limit it, you bring about hate and jealousy. Don't cut off love for yourselves or for Naru-chan. Hinata and Kurama simultaneously called out, "Hi, Ka-chan." Kurama received strange looks from the Uzumaki family. She just ignored them, blushing. Before their parents grew wings and took off from the skybox, they all gave each other another hug. Kushina's shout, "Last one to the buffet has dish duty for the next 100 years," was heard before 3 loud booms. It was a pleasure to spend time with you 3. I hope everything goes as planned once you return to the physical world. The 3 bowed to Shinigami and Kami and nodded. We'll contact you ourselves once you've gotten strong enough to handle our call. Be careful down there though. Just because you're Shinigami and Megami, doesn't mean your bodies are just as strong yet. If you die prematurely, there won't be much we can do this time. With a fierce voice, Naruto yelled, "We understand. We won't let you down either, right guys?" With a hi, Hinata and Kurama exchanged his energy. Alright then. See you guys in the next life. A black and a white orb were held up by Shiki and Hikari. To easily place their souls back in their bodies, they grew over the 3 of them before putting them to sleep. A searing pain shot through his body and then vanished almost immediately. Instead, His mind became as clear as possible and a rush of energy appeared to run through his veins. He took a deep breath, almost tasting the world's natural energy, and then let out what he could only surmise was his own power. He opened his eyes slowly, observing the hospital ceiling's drab off-white color. He thought grimly, a familiar sight. I guess it was all a dream. The blonde rubbed his eyes and sat up, finding that the weariness was gone as quickly as the pain he had experienced earlier. He turned to his left to see sheets ruffling from another bed. He noticed Hinata beginning to awaken as well, and his heart skipped a beat. She stretched and yawned, exposing her nude back and bottom where the hospital gown was not covering it, and he blushed at her adorable figure. It wasn't a dream, was it? Tears were streaming into the blonde Jinchuriki's eyes. I really did meet Ka-chan and Tusan? Hinata gasped as she looked at the blonde, Naruto-kun. Prior to seeing Naruto, she had also concluded that everything was a dream. Their sapphire and pale lavender eyes met for a moment. Their worries temporarily subsided as they realized everything about one another and were only able to smile at one another. It began softly as simple giggles before erupting into heart-stopping laughter. Initially, they had no idea why they were laughing, but it didn't matter. They had to get the hurt and sorrow of the night before out of their bodies. After they had calmed down, they saw that an Anbu had entered the room and was quickly leaving. Even though he was half a mile away, on his way to the Hokage's building, Naruto could still feel the Anbu. With her Byakugan activated, Hinata herself was using her eyes to follow the individual, something she had never been able to do before. After giving each other another look, the teenagers realized they had power that they had not had before. In addition to wellsprings of unimaginable potential, they could feel the strength radiating off of one another in large quantities. Naruto called out, grinning, "We're back, Hinata-chan." Hinata gave the gesture back. "Hi, Naruto-kun. Hey, you didn't stutter." The girl pressed her fingers together as she flushed brightly. But she understood that he was correct. Maybe her shyness wouldn't stop her from talking to people now, she said. "Maybe I'm just more comfortable around you now, Naruto-kun." As both teenagers' thoughts turned to the happenings in the afterlife, a brief silence started to form. Naruto was the first to speak after blushing a little. He blushed more than Hinata, and he asked, for how long have you, you know?" Despite her inability to combat the tint on her cheeks, the Hyuga princess maintained eye contact with Naruto while grinning warmly but ashamedly. "Anyo. For at least 2 years." Naruto's gaze expanded. "That much time? What prevented him from noticing?" "But I've admired you ever since that day you stood up to those bullies for me. I never got a chance to say thank you, but every time I tried after that, I'd get too flustered. Eventually, I could only watch as you went about your days, becoming stronger both physically and emotionally. You became a beacon of something I wanted to be. When I saw that most of it was a mask, I fell in love with the you that was determined to stay smiling. I wanted to give you a reason to truly smile, Naruto-kun." She was so engrossed in what she was saying that she failed to see Naruto's eyes were watering. "Anyo, I'm sorry Naruto-kun. I didn't mean to upset you." Naruto wiped his eyes and laughed. "You didn't upset me, Hinata-chan. I'm just really happy. I didn't think anyone cared about me that much. Not even Gigi or the Ichirakus." Now he knew why the girl would always pass out in his presence. He was aware that the girl was smitten with him even in the afterlife. But he was unaware of how much she cared for him. He chastised himself for not sensing her emotions earlier. All that time, he could have had a friend. He thought sorrowfully, "I kept trying to throw mine at Sakura-chan, so I didn't see her feelings." His existence was acknowledged by the pinkette, albeit violently and in no way in a positive manner. She represented his distorted perspective on friendship, which he now realized was incorrect. But he knew, deep down, really deep down, that Sakura was a decent person. But right here beside him all along was a good person on the inside and out. "Anyo, Naruto-kun. Kurama-chan. She's the Kyuubi, right?" replied Hinata. Naruto hesitated for a second. In the back of his mind, there was a persistent sense that something was missing. Knowing that he was, or once was, the Jinchuriki to one of the most powerful Biju, he was unsure of Hinata's reaction. His eyes were more interested in the world outside the window than in Hinata's face, which he knew would be disappointed, but he said, "Hi. I'm the host of the strongest-tailed beast. She seems really nice. I assume she's been taking care of you for a while. I want to thank you both for saving me last night." Hinata's knowing smirk caught Naruto's attention as his head snapped to her. "Why, you're not afraid of me? Knowing that I used to have a demon in me?" Hinata cocked her head, perplexed. "Why would I be afraid of you, Naruto-kun? Besides, Shiki-sama said Kurama was a spirit, not a demon. And even if she were, she didn't seem evil to me. Plus, having a demon inside of you doesn't make you a demon either. She giggled at the startled expression on her lover's eyes. Besides, you're a Shinigami now. I think that makes you far scarier than any Biju. Naruto broke out in a sweat. He pouted and said, I'm not scary. Which made the girl laugh even harder. Man, I think I liked the shy you better, she didn't tease me as much. Get used to it, Naruto-kun. The two shared a laugh, deciding that their predicament was better than not at that moment. They were all too eager to prolong the lingering happiness that descended upon them. But fate had other ideas, and in a whirl of leaves, the Hokage appeared with two Anbu. The teenagers pretended to be shocked at the elderly man even though they had sensed his arrival beforehand. Gigi. Naruto was about to leap from his bed when the Hokage raised a hand. Please, Naruto-kun, don't push yourself while you are recovering. Recovering? I feel better than ever, you too, right, Hinata-chan? Naruto answered the phone. The girl indicated that she was all right when she nodded excitedly and walked over to sit beside Naruto on his bed. She cocked her head, wondering why the Hokage and the two Anbu were suddenly averting their gazes while the Hokage attempted to conceal a slight flush. The Hokage's words perplexed the two teenagers for a little longer before realization hit them both. Yes, well, I suppose you both do look fine. However, before we continue, I believe you both should wear something more appropriate here. The warmth of her blood rushing to her face overtook the sudden breeze that blew over Hinata's bare ass. The dark-haired teenager disappeared with the swiftness of a jonin, and the bathroom door slammed shut in the same moment. Naruto laughed with the others. Before one of the Anbu struck him in the head, he just got up and dressed in front of the others. Ow! What was that for? Why are you getting dressed in front of a lady? She yelled. Naruto's head cocked. You're a girl, but you're so flat-chested. He realized his error as soon as he said it. Both the Hokage and the other Anbu assumed positions of prayer. Both of them called, may he rest in peace. The room was filled with the ki leaking from the now-known female Anbu. The door of the room opened before anything more could happen, revealing a stunning woman with raven hair and red eyes. After receiving a briefing on the events that had occurred, the woman became concerned. On the outside, she appeared cool and collected, but on the inside, she was a tornado of anxiety, sadness, and rage. The Anbu assumed their covert positions as Kurenai arrived. The Hokage cleared his throat after Naruto and Hinata were both dressed and seated next to each other on a bed. To everyone's surprise, the Hokage bowed his head and said, before we begin, I must apologize to you both as your Hokage for letting what transpired in that clearing happen in the first place. Please forgive this miserable old fool. The Hokage's display of weakness, particularly toward two academy students, shocked the adults. But they sensed his suffering. Regardless of their positions, none of them could stop what had occurred. Both teenagers would have been dead if not for whatever miracle had occurred. It's not your fault, Gigi, Naruto said in a low voice, although he wasn't sure he could really believe it. Regretfully, his mind had been working extra hours since he woke up from the other world. He had been alarmed by the clarity of his thoughts, but they also made it possible for him to consider all that had transpired thus far. Despite his best efforts to show concern, the Hokage did not go above and beyond for his charges. Both Naruto and Hinata were aware that the Hokage had a lot of duties, some of which they were unable to comprehend. They were certain that every unsuccessful mission and every shinobi who left those walls and never came back had an effect on the elderly man. But they both believed that taking a chance was necessary for the greater good. It was necessary to make some sacrifices, but they didn't have to be your own. That is to say, it was occasionally possible to turn into a villain to your adversaries or those who deserved it. The Hokage was too generous, which caused him to become oblivious to the evil occurring in his own house. Hiruzen's eyes were hard. He glanced at Naruto and saw him avert his eyes. With her hands clasped in her lap, Hinata's own eyes were fixed on them. He was aware that the teenagers didn't really think he wasn't at fault. A tiny nail seemed to be twisting in his heart. Regardless, he said in an attempt to lessen the pain, I take you to remember what happened last night. Slowly, both teenagers nodded. But they both appeared to squint in perplexity. Hinata was the first to speak. She touched her newly reformed eye and said, Anyo, Hokage-sama, I don't remember what happened after they. The implication made Kurenai's and Hiruzen's stomachs drop. Naruto also gave a nod. After I passed out from blood loss, I don't remember anything either. How are we alive? The teenagers were keeping their new abilities a secret. Not yet, they believed, would be a good time to tell them the truth. Naruto was aware that they would likely believe Kurama had stepped in and done something. However, the previous night had too many other holes to confirm or refute it. Kurenai glanced at her leader, meeting his gaze and mutely expressing that perhaps it would be best to spare them from such a gory night. It was probably best if they didn't recall what had happened. The Hokage adopted the grandfatherly stance, saying, "For all intents and purposes, though not my most professional opinion, I believe a miracle occurred. You two must have some higher powers looking out for you." He would have to investigate the situation independently. At some point in the future, he might even persuade Inoichi to examine the teenager's thoughts. The words spoken by the Hokage caused Hinata and Naruto to perspire. In the distance, they thought they heard Shiki and Hikari laughing. Anyo. Hinata called out to them again. What's Kurenai-san doing here? Kurenai gave a pitiful smile. Kurenai sulked and said, "Wow. Thanks for making me feel welcome, Hinata-chan." Hinata waved her hands wildly as her eyes grew wide. She stopped when she saw the older woman suppressing her laughter. "I didn't mean it like that, Kurenai-san. I was just wondering." In her words. The Hyuga teenager covered her face with her hands as she flushed. "Baka Kurenai-san. You tricked me." Kurenai took a seat beside Hinata and embraced her from the side. "I did, and I'm sorry. However, besides checking on you, the other reason I'm here is because I'm going to be your legal guardian for a while." Hinata's mouth hung open and her eyes grew wide. Normally, she would have inquired about the meaning of that. But whatever clarity she had gained in the other world allowed her to process thousands of possible outcomes in a matter of seconds. Her eyes filled with tears as soon as she realized what that meant. As the older woman drew her nearer, she broke into tears as she spoke. He disowned me? He banished me?" She understood it faster than the dark-haired Jonin had anticipated. She nearly started crying from the unexpected emotional outburst. However, a huge wave ki caused everyone in the room to freeze. The Jonin was forced to hold her breath by it. Her first instinct was to glance at the Hokage, but the elderly man appeared to withstand the shock a little better than she did. She had to swallow when she saw the utterly murderous expression in Naruto's eyes as she turned to face the only other person in the room. His eyes were like frozen glaciers, despite his passive face. Hinata withdrew from Kurenai and dabbed at her eyes, saying, Naruto-kun." Naruto looked at her when she put a hand on his shoulder. "Please calm down. It's all right. You know it will be." The former Jinchuriki stared at her while his rage over learning that her own family had deserted her gradually subsided. He had already thought of dozens of ways to hold her clan accountable. But her eyes, as they looked into his eyes, her gentle gaze was almost divine. She couldn't contain her sadness, and he couldn't control his rage. They were more supportive of one another than most people could ever hope to be, with just a glance. Kurenai watched the pair with some discomfort. Although she had no issue with Naruto, she was regretting her previous disregard for him after witnessing his interactions with Hinata. He appeared to have a close relationship with the girl and was no longer bouncing off the walls as he once was. A connection that, in all honesty, appeared to be somewhat beneficial to the girl. Perhaps the horrific incident from last night caused them to turn to one another for solace during their brief hospital stay. "Kurenai-san." The Hokage grinned briefly at being overlooked. "Seeing as they both seem to know what has already transpired, why don't you tell them everything? And if you two are willing, I can postpone the genin exams until you two are out of the hospital. It wouldn't be fair to anyone regardless of the decision made, but I would like to see you both become shinobi. If for nothing more than to prevent a repeat of last night." Hinata and Naruto gazed expectantly at Kurenai. Once more, the young Jonin gave a sorrowful smile. "So, yes, your father officially removed your Hyuga heiress status. You won't have to change your last name, but you are to have no interaction with the Hyuga clan within its walls unless otherwise stated by myself, the Hokage, and Hiashi. However, there's a bit of good news in this." The good news made the ex-Hyuga's eyes light up. "Seeing as Hokage-sama ordered the papers for your expulsion promptly before you woke up, you won't have to be branded with the caged bird seal. As well, Hanabi will be the clan heiress now and won't be branded either. You are free of your clan Hinata, completely and utterly." Her heart skipped a beat. It was nearly everything she had hoped for. She no longer had to act as though she was blind to the hatred that the main and side branches were directing at her. Knowing that her own family, including her father, sister, and cousin, despised her for a variety of reasons, most of which were beyond her control, would spare her from having to weep herself to sleep. She was aware of her failure. Both Naruto and Kurenai were alarmed by the girl's abrupt emotional collapse. Still leaning into Kurenai's side, The blonde Jinchuriki scooted closer to her and put an arm around her waist, asking, "Hinata-chan, are you alright?" Because she was also concerned about the younger girl, the older Jonin was able to conceal her slight blush at the intimate contact with the teenagers. I wanted to change them. To unite the Hyuga clan. But now I can't. And now Hanabi will have to deal with it on her own. With how she is. I can't see her wanting to change the clan. She'll become just like Fa. Like Hiashi-san. Her glum remarks caused her shoulders to sag. But she looked up when Kurenai and Naruto both squeezed her. "Hinata-chan, I promise you, we'll still do something about your clan. Maybe not soon, but we can unite them." Naruto made a promise. Knowing that the boy was making claims without any plans, such as his constant shouting about being Hokage, she gave Naruto a withering smirk and said, "Though I don't know what we can do, I can help you as well." Whenever an actual plan is thought of. She had no idea, however, that this new Naruto was considering countless possibilities in order to actually assist Hinata. Hiruzen cleared his throat once more, questioning whether it was really a good thing that he was so frequently forgotten. "Kurenai-san has adopted you, Hinata-chan. So you will be staying with her from now on. Naruto-kun, I have arranged for you to be moved into the same apartment building as the two. Unfortunately, as a Jonin, Kurenai is not allowed to adopt more than one child. As well, since you two will hopefully be genin before the end of the week, you both will become legal through service regardless." Naruto was aware that his prior Jinchuriki status was the true reason Kurenai was unable to adopt him. But that was okay anyhow. They would be technically legal adults once they were genin. As the Hokage stated, Hinata was adopted by Kurenai in order to protect her from her clan's laws. Hinata would no longer be Kurenai's ward once she turned into a shinobi. Making them roommates would be more appropriate. To the surprise of the elderly man, Naruto bowed and said, "Thank you, Gigi." His grandfatherly smile concealed it. "And if you two don't mind, I'm sure me and Hinata are strong enough to take the test today. You won't have to postpone them." Both Kurenai and the elderly man were taken aback by Naruto's demeanor, but they knew they couldn't say no after noticing the determined expression in both teenagers' eyes. Hiruzen nodded and put his hands behind his back. "I'll have a doctor give you all one more checkup. If they say you are clear to leave, I'll tell the academy to hold the tests later in the day so you two can get prepared." "All right." Naruto yelled as he leapt to his feet, while everyone else grinned broadly. Hinata giggled. They recalled Naruto like that. Then Kurenai and the Hokage departed. They received a final physical examination from a doctor who also checked and made sure they wouldn't be bothered by their wounds. They were given permission to depart together. Kurenai was waiting for them at the hospital's entrance, and the three of them walked quietly to Kurenai's apartment. She clarified that Naruto's belongings had already been moved into his new apartment by Anbu at the Hokage's request. Or what remained of them, anyway. Kurenai was already considering ways to make fun of Hinata and Naruto as they approached each other more closely than they had anticipated. But she kept thinking about why they were currently so close, so she made the decision to see where their newfound friendship would lead them. Kurama yelled abruptly, "Naruto-kun, come see me when you get a chance." Wondering why the Biju had been so quiet since returning from the afterlife, Naruto nodded in his head. Standing in Naruto's mindscape, said Biju gazed at her new environment. She stood atop a pagoda on what appeared to be a sizable traditional Japanese castle rather than a cage and a murky sewer. A thick forest with a perpetually hazy mist rolling through it surrounded them. She inhaled deeply and grinned at the tranquil forest. It was a vast and lovely place, but she was still alone. But she was busy creating a direct line of communication between Naruto and Hinata, which is why she had been so silent. She discovered that her chakra could still affect both of them as if she were sealed within them after experimenting with what she could do between them. Furthermore, she discovered that she could use the spirit realm to visit her siblings. The only people she had seen were Chome and her container Fu. Like Naruto, Fu was apparently shunned by her village. But the fact that Fu wasn't even really permitted in the village made it worse. Despite Chome's best efforts to help him, Fu appeared to despise everyone, particularly the Biju. Rewind Kurama felt the lands of their minds expanding farther than she could have ever imagined after transforming Naruto's mindscape into the castle and joining it with Hinata's. On the forest's horizons, tiny roads emerged that appeared to lead to various biomes. She could sense her sister Shukaku in the desert biome, which was the closest. She could see a huge sandstorm from where she was standing. She was aware that it meant Shukaku was having problems and that she wouldn't be able to get in touch with her until they were nearer. A dense forest with what looked like spider webs was close enough to see some of the others, but some were too far away. There was a sense of warmth and dread in the air of the forest. Chomei was a lively and a little eccentric Biju. Of all the Biju, she was presumably the easiest to get along with. She became concerned as a result of the ominous atmosphere surrounding her. Before resizing to her full size and gracefully leaping through the forest, Kurama reflected, "It seems like I only have enough strength to get that far anyway." She had already reached the entrance to the thread forest by the time she had completed 3 leaps. The kanji for whatever seal was applied to Chomei shone in the middle of the barrier that stood in front of her. "So I can break the seals from my side and release my brothers and sisters." I didn't understand what they meant when they said I was free. I really am capable of nearly anything. However, it would be bad to release them without first making contact, and I'm not sure if it would kill their host. Instead, Kurama made the decision to just pass through the barrier after having that thought. She was delighted that the seal remained robust but did not oppose her as she went in. But instead of a forest, she was greeted by a sizable cave as soon as she passed through the seal. The cave walls were lined with the same forest-derived web-like threads. Similar to her previous cell, a row of bars stood in front of her. On the bars was the same kanji that had been on the barrier. From the shadow of the cage, Chomei's face appeared, asking, "Who?" "Kurama ne." "But how?" Beyond her helmet-like head, her bright eyes dimmed to convey shock and bewilderment. "Am I imagining things now?" "You aren't hallucinating, Chomei Imoudo. I'm really here. A lot has happened, so much that I don't have time to explain right now." Seeing her older sister confused and delighted Chomei, she was so tempted to ask her, but she could sense how much energy Kurama was expending just to be with her. "I'm going to try something, Chomei, but I need your host in here with us." With hesitation, the Kabuto beetle asked, "What are you going to do?" After spending 14 years in Fu, she didn't have the luxury of trust, even though she wanted to trust her sister. Kurama might have killed her own host if she had been present, and she might have been attempting to free her by killing Fu as well. Kurama sensed Chomei's thoughts and grinned. She could practically hear them. "As I said, I can't explain everything, but I promise you that I mean no harm to you or your host. I've established a bond with my own container that has allowed me more freedom than you can imagine, Imoudo. Allow me to attempt to extend the same to you and your container." When the seal inside Fu finally appeared to notice her presence, Kurama felt a wave of pain. Even though the seal was trying to reject her, Kurama still had far more power than it did. She let loose more of her energy, filling the cave and halting the pain's flow. Chomei witnessed it all and knew that if her sister was lying, she wouldn't cause herself such suffering. Chomei said, "All right," with a sudden glee. "Don't worry, Ne-chan. Lucky 7 Chomei is willing to trust you." Kurama felt her energy draining more quickly. "That's great, so any day now," she said. Even though she had a respectable amount to spare, she still didn't want to waste it all needlessly. She was largely relieved that Chomei didn't harbor mistrust toward her for very long. One of her favorite siblings was her. For a while, Chomei fell silent, and Kurama realized she was speaking to Fu inaudibly. It merely resembled a roaring wind inside her head. A young girl with mint-green hair and dark skin appeared a short while later. "What the hell do you want, insect?" Fu screamed. Chomei winced visibly. Fu was about to say something else when she became aware of a shadow covering her. She felt as though an oppressive aura pressed against her. She turned slowly, only to be met with Kurama's maw and a menacing smile. Fu yelled, "Yaw!" and stumbled back, landing on her ass. Panic struck when her back struck the cavern wall more quickly than she had preferred. "Look here, Ninjin. You obviously know I'm the 9-tailed demon, the Kyuubi. That beautiful beetle you called an insect is my little sister, and also probably one of the only reasons you're still alive if the feeling I'm getting from you is right. You better treat her with respect, or I'll undo what I'm about to do." Although Fu was still in a panic, Kurama's words caused it to lessen into confusion. Chomei was also perplexed and nervous. When Kurama frightened Fu, she was a little alarmed, but she didn't sense any real malice. It was merely a joke. "You will find your answers beyond this cave. Once I do this, you will be connected to my host and his lover, almost as I am. You will be able to come and go within their collective mindscapes. However, you will need Chomei's help to do so." "How about Chomei?" Fu asked. "You never told her your real name." Chomei appeared to blush in a sheepish manner. "We've never had a civil enough conversation. She wants nothing to do with me." "You're damn straight. You're the reason everyone hates me." Kurama roared. "They hate her just as much," which sent the girl into a panic once more. "Do you think we chose to be sealed inside of you humans? To be stripped away from our family and to have our freedom stolen? Most of my brothers and sisters were sold as simply weapons to your villages before you were even born. We've been enslaved for more than half of our lives in existence. Chome has every right to hate you and everyone else in your pathetic village. But as far as I've seen, she has done nothing but attempt to befriend you. So for the record, I do this for my sister, not for your ungrateful ass. If you meet my container and spout this nonsense, I will have no problem locking you out of our realm. Chome asked, his eyes widening. Our realm? You mean you can actually connect Fu's mind to your hosts? How is that possible? Withholding a shudder, Kurama called, I'll just show you. Once more, the seal was attempting to reject her. Hold on to your horses, cause I've never done this before. Shiki, Hikari, if you guys can hear me, help me out please. As soon as Kurama spoke, a black and white sphere of light materialized beside her. Its annoyance was evident when the black one bounced off her head once. Kurama simply laughed, but was glad they were there. We're going to alter the seal to allow you access into a joint mindscape. You'll still be tethered to Fu's soul, but you'll be able to spread your wings at least. And you can also communicate with me, my host, and his mate from your mind Fu. Though as of now, you really don't deserve this. Fu laughed. But the idea of real companionship made her heart skip a beat. She pondered the nature of the Kyuubi's host. Would he be amiable? If the Kyuubi appeared so kind, she knew he couldn't have been as resentful as she was. Fu was so absorbed in her thoughts that she nearly failed to notice the two glowing orbs. Before they dove into Chome's cell's seal, Kurama's 9 tails also started to glow. The seal flashed a dazzling flash. They experienced a tugging sensation followed by a descent. Fu and Chome fainted as the light became unbearable. Final flashback. Kurama sensed the presence of Fu and Chome inside the castle. She was unable to explain the situation because they had not yet woken up. Now, though, there was a clear route to the Thread Forest, and Kurama could get there in a single bound. She had managed to link the mindscapes of Fu and Naruto. Or their souls, even better. Kurama grinned and started to return to the castle. She was eager for Hinata and Naruto to meet their newest companion. Teachers and students were talking non-stop in the academy. Everyone was shocked to learn that the graduation exam would be moved to later that evening. The Hokage did not provide a clear explanation for his actions, and it had never been done before. People didn't question it, though, because they were the Hokage. Yes, this is purely a matter of me not wanting to provide a detailed explanation. Naruto had quickly become accustomed to his new apartment. Not much remained, and he would have to furnish the space. He helped Hinata settle in with Kurenai because he didn't want to spend much time in it because it was so bare. He was surprised at how messy the woman's apartment was. She did appear to have made some effort to tidy up, but it seems that she was accustomed to living alone and didn't give a damn about the mess. Unfortunately for her, Hinata was a huge neat freak who reprimanded the Junin, much to the older Kunoichi's dismay and Naruto's amusement. Kurenai dismissed the two after cleaning for a while so she could prepare for the test, even though she still needed to make arrangements to get her own genin squad. Hinata drew nearer to Naruto and whispered, Naruto-kun, about what happened with Shiki-sama and Hikari-sama. Shouldn't we try to access the power they awakened in us? She briefly noticed that, despite the fact that, prior to the incident, he was only an inch taller than she was. In contemplation, Naruto folded his arms. He tried not to think about the people they had killed in the clearing the night before. I thought about that too. But remember what Shiki-sama said. We drained a lot of our energy accessing the powers to avenge ourselves. She said that we'd need to train ourselves back up again before really being able to access any of our god abilities. Hinata sulked. Still, she made an effort to use her Shintensai Byakugan. Sadly for her, it resulted in a tremendous surge of energy that instantly burst outward around her, knocking barrels and carts aside and pushing Naruto away. Panting, she fell to her knees. Naruto unlodged himself from the wreckage of a cabbage cart and cried out through his coughs, Hinata-chan, what the hell was that? My cabbages! The cart's owner exclaimed, holding his head in exasperation. First the bald kid with the arrow on his head and now this. At the disturbance, a crowd started to gather, and multiple Enbu showed up. With a cautious glance around, Hinata quickly thought of an excuse. I had to sneeze. Naruto went on to say, with wind chakra. Most people said, oh okay, before going about their daily lives. The two academy students caught the ANBU's attention as it stood there, since the teenagers knew that skilled ninja wouldn't accept such a flagrant. Before they all vanished, someone called, bless you, Lady Hyuga. Be on your way. In his mind, Naruto could hear Hikari laughing, saying, Hikari-sama, no wonder they can't catch me, they're all morons. Although Hinata expressed regret for acting so carelessly, She was happy to learn that they had increased their power. They could see how everything had changed in the academy, even though they would not soon be able to use their godly powers. Anxiety swept over the two as they arrived at the academy. Their time as technical civilians would come to an end. Naruto realized that his shinobi career had much more in store for him than just trying to become Hokage after everything that had transpired. In addition, Hinata believed that becoming a Megami would cause more mayhem than just wanting to bring her clan together. Furthermore, they remembered what Shiki and Hikari had said about a major event that might have an impact on other dimensions. And as soon as they got their Hite 8, everything was about to start. The fact that they were the last two people inside the building did not surprise them. Few people in the class paid attention to the two as they entered because of the minute-by-minute chatter. To their surprise, both Hinata and Naruto were able to sense the emotions of those around them. Unexpectedly, Sasuke was the first person to grab their attention and the one who elicited the strongest emotional reaction. They sensed that he was looking at them both, with resentment toward Naruto and reluctant admiration for Hinata. Hinata assumed he respected her because the Hyuga were a strong clan, but Naruto knew he detested him for being the dead last. Sakura came next. His focus on the Uchiha next to her caused the Pinkette to judge them as well, even though she was primarily displaying lust. Complete distaste for both of them, it seems. Known for sure that he and Sakura would never be more than friends, if that, Naruto winced a little. To be honest, he had no idea why she detested him as much as he did. However, Hinata was aware that Sakura detested her because she was the only girl Sasuke ever had a reasonably good conversation with in class. Kiba's feelings were obvious. He didn't despise Naruto, but whenever they were close, a patronizing air developed. They were somewhat friends before Kiba became a major offender of provoking Naruto after he began to be perceived as the last of the dead. The slightly possessive and lustful feeling she was receiving from him made Hinata shudder a little. She wasn't accustomed to feeling wanted at all, much less being practically obsessed by someone. However, she also experienced a slight sense of protectiveness, which somewhat calmed her. She was aware that Kiba might cause trouble, but he wasn't a hopeless case. A startling aura surged in their thoughts. Ino, who stood next to Sasuke, gazed at the two with obvious bewilderment. Hinata and Naruto sensed right away that she was examining them more closely than the others. They realized that Ino was also more powerful than they had initially thought. They sensed a repressed intellect as well as her lust for the Uchiha, albeit on a far lesser scale than Sakura's. Suppressed by force. With a furrowed brow, Hinata swiftly activated and deactivated her Byakugan. Hinata began, a whisper of rage slipping from her lips, Naruto-kun. With his own rage growing, Naruto replied, I feel it, she has a seal on her. They sensed that something was keeping the Yamanaka from using her full mental potential. According to the chakra, the girl's mental abilities had been purposefully stunted by someone, most likely a member of her family. As quickly as Ino had attempted to analyze them, she stopped to swoon over the Uchiha once more, much to their annoyance. The repressed Ino didn't like Hinata and detested Naruto. The final four who listened to them were easier to spot, but not what they would have anticipated. Shoji, Shino, Amy, and Shikamaru. They rarely interacted with Amy and occasionally even forgot she was there. But then she looked at the two, and her face flushed. She was obviously full of admiration and lust for them both. They were completely bewildered, even with the clarity that their new status had given them. They recalled Amy as one of the primary leaders of the Sasuke fangirls and a bully. She was sometimes a bitch to people, but she hadn't been as outspoken since Ino and Sakura put her in her place a year ago. As Hinata sensed the girl's suppressed feelings, she reasoned that it was peer pressure. Amy was a scared soul with a kind heart. Hinata gave the girl a smile in the hopes that it would be sufficient to convey to her that they might become friends in the future. She blushed as the purple-haired girl gave her a sheepish smile in return, much to her relief. Naruto nodded in recognition of the former bully after she gave him a gentle shove. They were no longer surprised that Shikamaru was the one who examined them the most. By the way they carried themselves, he could already tell that something was different about them. Still, he muttered, troublesome, and just fell back asleep, as they had anticipated. He would most likely ask them later. He appeared intrigued by the two at the moment, but he was still cordial. Shoji was unconcerned whatsoever. They knew whatever was on his mind had to do with food because they could actually hear his stomach growling. Shino harbored a mild dislike for them. The divine pair had initially been taken aback. The billions of insects inside him were literally screaming for him to extinguish their chakra. Shino had previously been friendly with them, especially Hinata. However, their transformation had intensified their chakra, which was obviously uncomfortable for Shino. The teen was clearly upset that something significant had happened to the two, so large that it drove his hive crazy, but he hadn't spoken because it would create a commotion. Hinata and Naruto stared at his shades. A tiny part of him that knew them as allies also questioned whether something negative had occurred to bring about the change, even though his anger was a result of his hive's restlessness. In any case, he would ask them questions as soon as possible. His hives were starting to hurt from their persistent fluttering. "Are you two going to stand there and stare at people all day, or can we begin the test?" Iruka called from behind the pair. When the young gods realized they hadn't examined everyone as quickly or covertly as they had hoped, they blushed sheepishly. To the surprise of the students, they sat side by side in the back of the room. Typically, Naruto would either try to flirt with Sakura or start a fight with Sasuke while Hinata faded into the background. In fact, the Pinkette and the Avenger were a little perplexed that he ignored them. "Alright class. Since you've all been informed of the test being postponed, and it's already late, let's get started immediately. I won't repeat what I said earlier. I'm sure you're all ready to become shinobi and kunoichi. So let's not delay any longer." People either passed or failed the test quickly after it started. It seemed as though Hinata could have passed the test with ease. A feeling of paranoia overcame Naruto when he was summoned to the other room. "There's something wrong," he thought. He stammered as Kurama's voice replayed in his head, "Yeah, like you and Hinata-chan ignoring me for so long." "Kurama-chan? Where have you been?" "A little bit of this and that. However, ever since you two left Kurenai's apartment, I've been keeping an eye on you both. Later, we will discuss. After you pass your test, I would like you and Hinata-chan to visit me." As he stood in front of Mizuki and Iruka, Naruto nodded in his head and braced himself. He knew right away what was wrong. Mizuki was radiating hatred and a tangible gloom at Jinchuriki. "Oh, all right." Naruto smirked confidently. "He hates my guts and is probably going to fuck up my test. We should watch him try." One of his favorite students exuded confidence, and Iruka couldn't help but think that this would be the moment that Naruto truly succeeded. The grin spread like wildfire. "All right, Naruto. This test is going to be a little different from the ones you've..." Iruka and Mizuki suddenly blurred their hands and hurled two kunai at the blonde. Since Mizuki's was thrown faster, Naruto caught it idly and deflected Iruka's. The scarred Chunin's kunai only chipped the wall slightly, indicating that it was dulled, but otherwise bounced off the wall without causing any damage. Naruto frowned as he glanced at Mizuki's. Naruto touched the tip, slightly cutting his finger. "Nay, Iruka-sensei, are these supposed to be this sharp?" he asked. Iruka shook his head and accepted the kunai after he had recovered from the shock of Naruto's lightning-fast reflexes. He glared at Mizuki, who scratched the back of his head, and said, "No, Naruto, these aren't supposed to be sharp." "What? I swore I pulled those from the dull kunai box. Maybe a sharp one got mixed in." Naruto shrugged and said, No harm no foul." Iruka scowled at both of them. "Well, be more careful, Mizuki. You could seriously hurt someone." Iruka didn't think it was an accident for a second. He hadn't been so reckless as to turn into a Chunin. However, he believed that he ought to have seen the kunai long before it had come into contact with his partner's hands. Also, good reaction speed, Naruto. Though the test was for you to use the substitution jutsu. I suppose your reaction speed is good enough to bypass it. In the corner designated for the test, Naruto replaced it with a log and said, "I can still do it." Mizuki moaned to himself, and Iruka laughed. As he sat down beside Mizuki again and folded his hands, Iruka said, "All right, then. Next will be a genjutsu test. Are you ready, Naruto?" Naruto grinned slightly as he stood in front of the two. "Kai." He merely called out right away, causing the recently seated Iruka to flicker away as the real one moved behind him. The scarred Chunin coughed into his fist after blushing sheepishly. Well. I definitely didn't expect you to figure that one out so quickly." Mizuki had to give Iruka a small smile. Naruto sighed and said, "Come on, sensei. Give me something challenging." Naruto successfully transformed into the Sandaime for the next test, which was a straightforward henge. Mizuki realized then that Naruto would pass the test and his plan would be foiled. "I can't allow him to. I need to take action. This is going really good, Naruto. Only one more test and you'll pass. I just need you to perform a simple bunshin jutsu." On the inside, the blonde was a little giddy. Now that he was a technical god, he was certain that he could not fail the clone jutsu, even though he knew it was one of his weakest. He knew more about chakra and how it all interacted with the world and with himself. He made a sign with one hand and started skillfully shaping the chakra. But he sensed a pull, as though his chakra were being disrupted. He caught a glimpse of Mizuki trying to do some kind of jutsu covertly, and his eyes narrowed a little. He's attempting to cheat on me. With a menacing grin, Naruto made a series of additional hand signs, causing his chakra to flare around his body and sending a little whipping wind through the room. Well, two can play that game. The action startled both Chunin, and Mizuki halted his own jutsu in disbelief. Naruto called out his new jutsu before Iruka could finish. Naruto, are you? Fuden. Kei's Bunshin no Jutsu. One Naruto appeared beside another, floating off the ground on a whirlwind in a burst of wind. With its hair blowing wildly, the clone's entire body appeared to radiate the wind. The two Chunin's mouths fell open. More than anything else, Iruka called out, an elemental clone? Unlike any I've seen before. Naruto, how did you do this? He was now questioning whether he had been holding back the entire time, as he had been concerned about his surrogate little brother's chances of passing the test. I learned my elemental affinity a few weeks back. I've been training on my own since then and found out I have a knack for creating jutsu. But please don't tell anyone else. Gigi told me to wait until I'm a genin to show this. Naruto told the truth. He only used the jutsu he had learned from his new transformation. He produced a wind clone that was more like a real wind elemental than a straightforward elemental clone. It would, however, transmit its memories and experiences, including bodily experiences, back to the original, just like the shadow clone did. A type of divine chakra was used to create the clone's wind. It could change Naruto's body when it gets back to him. Iruka tried not to smile, but it was almost tearing his face. This is brilliant, Naruto. I'm happy to say that you've passed with flying colors, it said. Naruto merely bowed to the two, suppressing his own excitement. After receiving his Hite-8, he wore it across his forehead as he left the room. Many students gasped when they saw the blonde. Someone called out, "Holy shit, the Dobi passed." Another exclaimed, "My god, miracles do happen." A random fangirl exclaimed, "If he could pass, then we can definitely get a date with Sasuke-kun. Get near him and I'll strangle you with your own intestines," Sakura yelled. A gloomy aura surrounded the girl, and the class shivered at her. Naruto stepped back to take a seat beside Hinata, disregarding the remarks. When it was all over, Iruka and Mizuki came back to give them a final speech about their responsibilities as the village's new generation of shinobi and kunoichi. Team assignments will be held tomorrow at 10 a.m. Class dismissed. The class erupted in, "Thank you, Sensei," before everyone started to leave to meet their parents and other loved ones. "Congratulations, Naruto-kun." When people started to depart, Hinata and Naruto stayed behind. "Anyo, Kurama-chan wants to speak with us too," within the seal. Naruto gave a nod. "Congrats to you too, and yeah, she told me earlier, we can do it right now if you don't need to be home right away." At that, the Hyuga heiress scowled. Getting home to tell her father right away didn't really bother her because she didn't think he would care whether or not she had passed. Although it was a little disheartening, she grinned because she knew that she could use her newfound ability to disprove his and her clan's perceptions of her. "Hi, Naruto-kun. Let's go now." The two new genin went to the academy building's small library after leaving the classroom. They took meditative positions after sitting side by side in a private corner. In a matter of seconds, they were in front of the massive Japanese castle in the forest of Kurama. A little prior to in her lowly form, Kurama sat in a spacious foyer-like space inside the castle, drinking tea with her legs folded. Chomei and Fu had just woken up and were still exploring the castle and the surrounding area. With a sigh of satisfaction, the strongest Biju felt her sisters and her cantainer's joy as they enjoyed their first taste of freedom in about 15 years. Following their awakening, Kurama gave Fu one final warning to treat her and her younger sister with dignity. She was taken aback when the green-haired kunoichi genuinely apologized to them both. She clarified that she had never felt more hopeful in her life after seeing the castle and realizing that she had a safe haven. Kurama had been trying to get in touch with some of her other siblings while they were away. Shiki and Hikari had set her free, but she still lacked the full power she had gained from reviving Naruto. However, she was recuperating much more quickly than she would have if the seal had continued to drain her power. She was roughly Chomei's level at the time. Regaining full strength would likely only require a few more days or even weeks. She reasoned that unless their host was closer, she wouldn't be able to reach the others until she was at least on par with Gyuki. She had attempted to traverse the spirit world, but it would take her some time to get the hang of it. The location was far too large. Nor had any of the other routes become any more obvious. Her other siblings were causing her concern. Primarily Shukaku. The Tanuki had a history of being unruly. She wanted to prove herself because she was the weakest of them all. She could only speculate about the psychological effects of being sealed. A slightly different voice called out, "We're back, Oni-sama." Shomei's voice was different. Kurama looked up to see a girl as small as herself hanging on the back of Fu as she walked back. Kurama-sama. Shomei is a loli now too," she said in a tone that was obviously irritated but also a little perplexed. As it turned out, Shomei fell off Fu's back and rushed toward her sister, embracing her. "Oni-sama." She currently had a figure similar to Kurama's, with thick thighs and a small chest. Her thighs weren't as thick, though, and her breasts were only B-cup. Although Shomei was roughly 2 inches taller, their hips and muscle mass were comparable. Her hair flowed down her back like Sakura's, but it was deep blue with light green tips, and her skin was the same shade of brown as Fu's. The green tips were held in place by 7 characteristic spikes at the end. Kurama felt a little flattered. "Shomei, what are you doing? You didn't need to make yourself small too." The loli with 7 tails shook her head. "Yes, I did. It would be disrespectful to take a form that overshadowed you, Oni-sama. Besides, this is comfortable and fits my personality more." The Biju with the red hair flushed. She was unaware of Chomei's admiration for her. She felt a surge of pride in her chest and tears in her eyes. The younger Biju was given a tight hug by her. "Oh my Imouto. I love you so much, love ya too, Oni-sama." "Imouto. Oni-sama, Imouto, Oni-sama." Fu fell to her knees and held her eyes as she yelled, "Oh God, where'd that sunset come from?" As Kurama sensed Naruto and Hinata's presence entering the dimension, their moment was cut short. Shaking from what she had just witnessed, Fu remained on the ground in the fetal position. The two could only gaze in awe as they entered the castle. "Wow, Kurama-chan. You've been busy." "Yep, Naru-kun. We've got more family now too." Shomei continued to hold on to Kurama while waving at the two. The sight of the two caused Naruto and Hinata to pause. "Why are you both naked?" Shomei simply looked perplexed, but Kurama had the grace to blush. "Well, I haven't figured out what type of outfit I want to wear yet. Plus, since we've all seen each other naked already anyway, I don't see the problem." Shomei laughed. "We're exhibitionist, Imouto." Naruto and Hinata laughed at the two. Naruto asked, "So you're the 7 tails?" "Haai!" Shomei exclaimed with excitement. She gestured to the girl who was now sitting with her knees pulled to her chest and said, "And that's my container, Fu-chan." The strange sunset seemed to have calmed her down, but she still gave Hinata and Naruto a suspicious look. Naruto could immediately see the fear and hurt in Fu's eyes. She, too, was cautious. He realized in that instant that she had also been mistreated and abused. He glanced at Chomei and saw that she was happy to be around Kurama, but also that she had loneliness in her eyes. "Naruto-kun." Hinata touched his shoulder to let him know that she understood. With a nod, he went to Fu. He sat a few feet ahead of her and said, "Hey, my name's Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Kurama-chan's Jinchuriki." Although the terror in her eyes had begun to subside, she curtly said, "I'm Fu. I don't have a family name." She was attempting to settle in with them. "I'm Hinata Hyuga. Nice to meet you, Fu-chan." Hinata smiled warmly and emanated a friendly aura as she stood behind Naruto, which further calmed Fu. Fu began, How are you like that?" The younger gods gazed bewilderedly at the older girl. Fu dropped her physical guard and sat down on her knees. Hinata inquired, "What do you mean, Fu-chan?" She yelled, "You're not fakin'," loudly, "You're actually happy." After scowling at that, Naruto made an effort to smile. "Yeah, I'm happy. But don't let that fool you. I was killed last night, and so was Hinata-heim." It was Fu's turn to be perplexed now. After a moment of confusion, she growled in frustration. She still couldn't detect a lie, but she kind of assumed they were playing tricks on her. "What are you talking about? I was oblivious to being a Jinchuriki until last night. A bunch of villagers knocked me out and took me out of the village to torture and kill me. While I was dying, I met Kurama-chan. Also, Hinata-heim showed up and tried to save me, but they killed her too. Luckily, Kami-sama and Shinigami-sama gave me and Hinata-heim a second chance. I'm happy because I got closure from things from my past, as well as finding my first true friends in Kurama-chan and Hinata-heim." Fu's expression was deadpan as he observed the two. She didn't want to accept any of their claims. She had no reason to believe them, really. Even though the story was so unbelievable, she couldn't deny them for some reason. It's free, now, you little shit. Stop telling that story to everyone. Shiki's voice reverberated in the thoughts of Hinata and Naruto. Unaware that they should probably keep the true story a secret, the two could only blush sheepishly. In either case, Shiki had made Fu believe them. But that's even more of a reason to hate them. To hate everyone and everything, even with Kurama-sama. She came to us to give us a bit of freedom, but she's supposed to be the incarnation of hatred. Angrily, Kurama called, "Where'd you hear that dumbass shit from?" Chomei merely chuckled. "I wasn't born an incarnation of hatred. But since I'm a chakra-based spirit, my emotions are more potent than humans. You'd get pissed too if you were put under control of some freaky pink-eye-looking bastard and then somehow subdued by a wood-using pansy just to see your brothers and sisters auctioned off like slaves and then sealed inside of a person with enough chakra to keep you firmly locked away in a dark sewer. Then to constantly be sealed for several decades, just to almost taste freedom, end up under the control of another pink-eyed bastard, and sealed once again, into this dumbass for 13 years. The castle shook with Kurama's rage, and everyone started to perspire. Like Naruto's mother, the little monster even had her hair blowing behind her. "Point Chikina," admitted Fu. "It began with Hinata, see Fu-chan. The Biju are just as much victims here as you and Naruto-kun. Yes, we've all had shitty lives and have suffered unjustly. But that doesn't mean that we need to wallow in our pity when we could easily be doing things to make our lives better. As much as it pains me and Naruto-kun killed the villagers that killed us. And if I had to do it again, I would in a heartbeat to protect my loved ones." That kind of shocked Naruto. Hinata took it very seriously. He could tell she was considering people who might attempt to hurt them in the future, and he was certain she would kill them without hesitation. Even though he knew they were ninja, he was still undecided about killing them. They had assassination training. Since killing was the focus of their work, he would likely have to kill more than anyone else if he wanted to be Hokage. He was a Shinigami even beyond that. A god of death, literally. Eventually, he would have to accept it, but for now, he chose to just concentrate on what was in front of him. She paused, clung to Kurama sadly, and looked at Chomei. I just don't know. All of my life there has only been one person," she said. "Well, two people that have ever cared for me, and honestly speaking, I haven't been very cordial with either of them. I've been hated by my entire village besides the village chief for all 15 years of my life. People have tried to drug me and kill me for as long as I can remember. One person even tried to rape me a few years ago. All of the people in the room had a gloomy aura, but Chomei's was the strongest. I made sure she suffered a fate worse than what she was going to do to Fu." Naruto said, "Wait, she?" Kurama laughed. "What, did you think men were the only ones capable of such a despicable thing? Yes kid, women are just as fucked up as men. But now I'm interested in what you did to her Imouto." Fu blacked out and I took control for a bit. I drug her sorry ass into the worst part of the jungle and sprayed her with the strongest pheromone I could produce. I didn't leave until I saw every man-eating plant and giant bee have their way with her before plastering her to a cave wall and impregnating her with dozens of eggs. As far as I know, she's still there bolstering the insect population." Fu was unaware of that, and he actually gazed at the Biju in awe rather than fear. She had no idea that she would go to such lengths for her. Hinata and Naruto could only grin. If anyone, no matter who they were, tried to impose themselves on someone they cared about, they would do the same thing, if not worse. Or, for that matter, at all. As everyone fought back their emotions, there was a brief lull in the conversation. With a bow, Fu said, "Thank you. All of you. To the divine pair. I'm so sorry Chomei-sama, for treating you so poorly all these years. I promise to be a better partner from now on." Chomei moved away from Kurama and approached Fu slowly. She had a slight frown on her lips, but her eyes were nearly unreadable. For a few seconds, she just stood over the girl with the mint hair, placing a hand on her hip and observing her. "Fu-chan." The girl in question hesitated and looked up slowly. She was anticipating rejection, as evidenced by the brief moment of fear in her eyes. She knelt down and gave the girl a hug, causing her to finally let out a stream of tears she was unaware she was suppressing. "You don't have to call me Sama. That honor belongs to Big Sis, and apology accepted," she said. After deciding to give the two some space, Naruto, Hinata, and Kurama left the castle. Enjoying the beauty that Kurama had created, they leapt to the tallest pagoda and gazed out over the foggy forest. Hinata leaned against Naruto's right side and called, "It's so relaxing." To his embarrassment, Kurama nuzzled into his neck while leaning against his life. "Yep. I made it big enough for everyone to stay eventually. Once I get my full strength back and you two unlock your godly abilities, We should be able to bring this place into a separate pocket dimension closer to your dimension. Meaning you all and anyone you want to bring will be able to actually live here. Like a summons realm. Naruto leapt up and knocked both girls off him, much to their dismay. Wait, really? That's awesome, he exclaimed. Now we really need to get our powers up to par. I don't think it'll be that easy, Naruto-kun. Even if we're stronger than the average genin, I doubt we'd be able to become as strong as Hikari-sama and Shiki-sama anytime soon. Kurama gave a nod. She's right. You two aren't even as strong as I am yet, and I'm not at full power. I'd say you guys are solid jonin, but with the little experience you have, even some special jonin could give you some go. That bad. Naruto had hoped that the assist would have prepared him to take on Kage. Kurama chirped, but look at it this way, Kit. You literally just became genin. A few months under a jonin instructor and you and Hinaheim will most likely be the strongest people in this village, at the very least on par with me at full strength. After that, we can all grow by leaps and bounds. Plus, as soon as you two start unlocking your godly powers, I doubt anyone short of Kage ability will be able to even spit in your direction. So about half a year before we can actually start making big moves. Give or take a few months. Naruto reclined on the pagoda and gazed up at the enormous moon. Oh well, never wanted anything handed to me on a silver platter anyway. I'll still be Hokage and I'll work my ass off to make it happen. Kurama pumped her fist, and Hinata simply blushed and laughed at the two. That's the spirit, Naruto-kun, she exclaimed. Anyo, I know you'll succeed, Naruto-kun. I'll make sure of it as well. The three then reunited with Chomei and Fu. They talked about their private lives in their villages and gained more knowledge about Takigakure's village chief. They had underestimated how animated Fu was. She genuinely reminded them of Naruto prior to his metamorphosis, but they could see that she was more adept at controlling her excitement than Naruto. Everyone quickly became friends. To Fu's delight, the group was soon forced to leave, pledging to spend as much time together as possible. In order to keep the girl company and spend time together, Chomei and Kurama made the decision to visit Fu's seal. With their minds and souls linked, Kurama could no longer be rejected by Fu's seal. At last, they were all able to be friends. Naruto and Hinata sensed something was wrong as soon as they woke up. Looking around bewildered, Naruto said, "Can you hear that, Hinataheim?" She exclaimed, "Yes. That sounds like a silent alarm," and fled the library. A silent alarm? For what? Something important is happening for ninja only? It's an alarm to alert any active shinobi to report to the Hokage Tower. My father told me about it a while ago. They saw a group of Chunin and Jonin in front of the Hokage as they hurried to the Hokage Tower. They used their enhanced hearing chakra to listen in while remaining as far back as they could. Before sending the shinobi to find Naruto Uzumaki, Hiruzen called out, "Please bring in Naruto Uzumaki unharmed if possible. We cannot let the forbidden scroll of sealing fall into the wrong hands." He mumbled, "Uh-oh." Hinata squinted and pressed the Byakugan button. She started looking around the village and saw someone wearing a henge that resembled Naruto. "Naruto-kun, I found the imposter. It's Mizuki-sensei and he's leaving the village as we speak with the scroll." As Naruto stood and felt his full strength coursing through his body, his face also darkened. He used the scroll to sense Mizuki, and sure enough. As he and Hinata blasted off toward Mizuki, Naruto made a K's bunshin and sent it to the Hokage, leaving a strong backdraft in their wake. "Let's go, Hinaheim." The storm clone landed in front of the Hokage as he was about to return to this tower. The Hokage gestured for his Anbu to emerge, encircling the boy without causing any harm. "And Naruto-kun? What are you doing here? Where is the scroll you stole?" The clone raised its hands in protection. "Hold on a sec, Gigi. For one, I'm just a clone. 2. The boss was in the library with Hinataheim this whole time and we just heard the silent alarm and came to see what was going on. Hinata was able to spot someone hanged as me with the scroll on her and the boss are on the way to confront him. Promise to Kami we didn't do anything wrong." Hiruzen frowned more deeply. "I should have known that someone was attempting to frame Naruto-kun." Hiruzen murmured, "I think it's Mizuki Toji." Both the clone and the Anbu heard but remained silent. Naruto reasoned that Iruka must have previously informed the Hokage about the test. The clone deadpanned in his head. It's unbelievable that he was so foolish as to try something so soon. Without hesitation, the Anbu scattered, saying, "Anbu, please catch up to the real Naruto and the young Hyuga heiress. Retrieve them safely and return the scroll with extreme prejudice." The clone grinned confidently and rubbed the back of his head, saying, "Actually, Gigi, I'm pretty sure they'll be done with him by the time anyone shows up. The Hokage went on into the tower, saying, "Oh, well then, let's go enjoy the show." Mizuki was quickly overtaken by Naruto and Hinata thanks to their increased speed. He was kicked sideways by Hinata, who knocked him into a tree and sent him flying into a clearing below. When he struck the floor, his henge dropped. Mizuki put the scroll down and drew a huge shuriken from his back, saying, "What the hell? Who's there? Show yourself." In order to conceal their presence, Naruto and Hinata hid in the treetops. Naruto's voice reverberated throughout the clearing, "Mizuki Teme, you have failed this village." The man didn't recognize the voice because he was in such a panic. Failed this village? Fuck this village. Any village that lets a demon spawn walk free can burn in hell for all I care. I'm going to a real village, one that will give me the power I deserve to come back and purge this shithole. As Mizuki spoke, Naruto materialized behind him. He gradually increased the Chunin's awareness of his chakra presence. But Naruto was gone as soon as he turned around. You speak of Naruto-kun as if he is a 1,000-foot demon bent on destroying humanity. Yet, it's you threatening to betray the place you swore to protect by taking that headband. Would the deaths of hundreds of innocents mean nothing to you? Hinata's words followed. You're a fool if you believe he's anything other than the Kyuubi, you bitch. Now show yourself, cowards. He turned around again, and Hinata said in his ear, "So that is your answer." Then she disappeared. The Chunin had now gone into a panic. Their increasing numbers demonstrated that whoever was having an affair with him was far more than Chunin. Furthermore, a terrible sense of dread seeped into his very being. Naruto and Hinata started talking to each other. Oh, poor shadow, lost in the night, making fun of and hurting other people. A damned person moping over sin. Would you like to try death? The two spoke without knowing how or why they were saying it. However, clarity shone within them both as a shroud of darkness started to cover the clearing. This marked the beginning of their journey toward divinity. Judgment. On both sides of Mizuki, Hinata and Naruto floated opposite one another. Their eyes gleamed as though they were in their divine guises, but that was the extent of their power. Mizuki was unable to fight any longer because he could feel his sins snatching at him. He lacked the fortitude to confront his karma. He fell to his knees and let out a howl into the night. Each of the divine pair produced two sides. Naruto's was dark, and Hinata's was light. The next time they passed Mizuki, a distinct X was visible across his chest. Like leeches, the X produced tendrils of light and darkness that started to eat away at his skin. Everything that was Mizuki Toji was depleted, and his howls were muffled. Behind him, a dark hand rose, then slammed down, dragging his soul to hell. As the darkness dissipated, Naruto and Hinata resumed their regular lives. That one is off my hands, Era. Please make responsible use of your skills. In their minds, Hikari's melodic voice chirped. The two discovered Mizuki's body lying in a tiny pool of blood after landing, with the X across his body appearing to have been created with two kunai. Additionally, kunai were said to be in their hands. They had been spared an explanation for the Hokage by Hikari. Wait. So does that mean we've unlocked a part of our divine ability? Replied Naruto. Shutting her eyes, Hinata tried to use her Shintensai Byakugan again. But even though she failed once more, she sensed a tiny bit of divine energy within herself. Unlike before, it didn't cause a burst. Hi, Naruto-kun. I believe we can try to use a little now. The Anbu soon showed up and prepared to take Naruto into custody, but Hinata intervened. Iruka also emerged, claiming to have arrived at the same moment that Mizuki was confronted by Naruto and Hinata. From his point of view, Mizuki attacked Hinata and Naruto, who bravely retaliated, killing the traitor. All of this took place in a matter of seconds. After being led back to the Hokage's tower, he verified Iruka's account and praised the two for apprehending a traitor. They would receive credit and payment for a B-rank mission from the Hokage. They then went to Ichiraku's with Iruka and quickly made their way back home. Naruto called out to Hinata as they stood in front of her and Kunai's apartment, "It's been one hell of a day." Whispering, "MMA." She looked down. She leaned against the door with her hands behind her back. Naruto's eyebrows went up. "Is everything okay, Hina-hime?" Hinata let out a sigh. "Naruto-kun. Things are going to get more hectic for us from here on out. And being ninja, our lives are already finite. I understand that we'll most likely have time in the afterlife, but..." The blonde was aware of her destination. With a sorrowful smile, he put his hand on the girl's cheeks and gently forced her to meet his eyes. "Hinata-hime, would you like to be my girlfriend?" Tears came to the Hyuga goddess' eyes as she flushed. Naruto caught a glimpse of the timid yet endearing academy girl. With a lovely smile on her face, she closed her eyes. "Hi Naruto-kun. I would love to be your girlfriend," she said, putting her lips to his and giving him a tight hug. They were surrounded by a whirlpool of light and darkness as the tiny divine energy they had unlocked flared within them. In that one instant, all of their feelings were exposed to one another. Their affection evolved into something much more than fondness. They looked into each other's eyes after kissing, understanding each other much better than before. Hinata's nose was nuzzled by Naruto's. "Angel. Good night my Tenshi. Devil. Good night my Akuma." After retiring for the night, the two were prepared to move forward into the future. Hinata had knocked on Naruto's apartment door just over an hour before they were supposed to depart for the academy, much to Naruto's surprise. Without a word, the girl tackled him in the open doorway and tried to suck his tongue through his mouth. Technically, both of them were now immortal, despite their youth. They were immortal creatures. Because they are no longer fully human, their hormones may or may not have been triggered. As Hinata straddled one of Naruto's legs and gave him a passionate French kiss, Naruto couldn't help but notice the stirring in his pants. Her groans resonated in his throat, causing the Jinchuriki to produce guttural groans as he felt her slowly grinding on his leg. The blonde was aware that if he let it continue, Kurenai and perhaps the entire neighborhood would learn that two new genin were trying to outshine the next generation. She told him that Kurenai needed her to leave before her, something about keeping her assigned team a secret or something, after he had calmed her down enough that she wasn't afraid of dying from a lack of air. Hinata didn't question it because she was desperate to see and express her love for her new boyfriend. After having a dream that he was certain Shiki and Hikari had planted, Naruto gladly complied. He was back in the afterlife with Hinata and Kurama, enjoying each other's company in a resort-like setting. They had a passionate threesome at the end of the night, and Naruto wasn't even sure what to call some of the roles he had dreamed about. He suspected that Kurama and Hinata also had the same dream. The three of them agreed that it would be best to avoid talking about it lest they feel tempted to give it a try too soon. As he and Hinata walked hand in hand toward the academy, Naruto asked, "Speaking of which, weren't you going to be with Fuchan Kurama?" They noticed that while the majority of the villagers frowned at them, some of them seemed genuinely delighted to see them together. The girl with 9 tails let out a sigh. "As much as I would like to stay with my Imouto and Fu, I do still need to find a way to contact the others. I'll go back in a bit if I don't have any luck. Plus, I think Shiki and Hikari are tired of helping us so much. They've stopped answering my calls." At that, Naruto and Hinata scowled. Although the goddesses claimed to be on vacation, they had taken a brief break to assist them with the previous evening. From that point on, the divine pair would have to exercise caution in their actions. After spending 30 minutes strolling around the village, the couple made the decision to go to the academy. If not for the numerous glares the two received, the walk would have been enjoyable. As the frost started to form around Hinata, Naruto held her hand. Although her anger had the intended effect of driving the weaker-willed villagers away, it was also causing her powers to leak a little. For the Jinchuriki, it was nearly comical. Nevertheless, they reached the academy nearly 30 minutes ahead of time. A few other students were present, but Iruka wasn't yet. They were relieved that none of their related classmates had yet to enter. As they made their way to their seats, the divine couple jumped at the address, "Hinata-san, Naruto-san. A word please." When they looked up, Shino was slouching somewhat irritably and staring at them. How could we have missed him? Together, Hinata and Naruto pondered. They would most likely attribute it to Shino's absence. They were staring at him, and for some reason Shino took offense. With some defensiveness, Naruto questioned, "What do you want, Shino?" A small amount of negative energy was being released by Shino. Again, though, it was more annoyance than malice. "Your presence is causing my hive to stir greatly. What has happened to you two?" he asked directly. With a warm smile, Hinata hoped to calm the boy's growing animosity. "Unfortunately, Shino-kun, that is something only the Hokage could answer. Truthfully, something did happen to me and Naruto-kun, but we are not at liberty to speak on it. Please, understand." Shino was pleased by her response, but it didn't do much to calm his hive's restlessness. It made him even more curious about what might have happened to his fellows, but he wasn't in a rush to question the Hokage about it. "Well, for the time being, I would ask that you two remain a fair distance away from me until I can calm my hive. I mean no offense." The two were only able to nod before taking seats close to the bottom of the rows. If Shino caught on, it may only be a matter of time before others wonder what's going on with us, Naruto asked. Hinata gave a nod of agreement. There were too many questions for her to handle. But the Hokage was actually protecting the information. They were limited to attempting to dissuade people as they approached. When Iruka said, "Glad to see you here bright and early, Naruto. Hinata must really be a good influence on you." She broke the little tension in the room with his cheerful tone. Naruto smirked despite his huff, and Hinata flushed at what he said. Naruto shrugged, causing Hinata's blush to turn into a magnificent glow. Yeah? Pretty girls have guys wrapped around their fingers all the time. Guess I'm no different." Muttering about embarrassing boyfriends and senseis, she covered her face with her hands. Before getting ready for the rest of the students to arrive, Iruka laughed at the bashful girl. When he remembered the night before, he scowled. Despite taking a life, the two continued to act as if nothing had happened in class. Even worse, the Hokage made the event an A-class secret, so he was unable to give them the recognition they deserved. Most people would not think that two academy students stopped a Chunin traitor, but others might hear about the incident through rumors. He was even more curious about their first kill and how they were doing. Even though they were formally genin, they were still his students, albeit only temporarily. He was concerned about Naruto in particular. He saw that both of the genin had changed, and he couldn't help but believe that they were just trying to hide their true emotions. Unfortunately, as the class started to fill up, he would not be able to speak with the two. The few students who noticed continued to give Naruto and Hinata strange looks as they sat side by side. Once more, Sakura and Sasuke were taken aback by the blonde's lack of interest in them. Wait, did that baka finally understand that Hinata was attracted to him? Sakura smiled. I guess losers of a feather flock together. He will now at last stop bothering me, allowing me to concentrate on wooing Sasuke-kun. You're going down, Ino bitch. Even so, a tiny, itty-bitty part of Sakura moaned that Naruto might have moved on from her. Speaking of which, Sakura did not make any attempt to genuinely acknowledge Sasuke or the blonde mind-walker who sat opposite her. She appeared drowsy and teetered as though she were going to fall asleep in her chair. After noticing, Naruto pushed Hinata to look at the girl. With subtlety, the former Hyuga activated her Byakugan. Then, as a surge of murderous intent filled the room, Naruto went pale. It vanished immediately after, so it was literally just a moment. A shiver ran down everyone's spines, and dread gripped them all as they looked around. Iruka also took in his surroundings, his face gradually regaining its color. Was Hokage-sama the one who did that? Has something taken place? He pondered absently. Observing his students' expressions, he quickly composed himself and cleared his throat in the hopes of calming the restless class. Naruto waited for the class to calm down a little before tapping the girl with the pale eyes next to him. Although her naturally soothing aura kept her anger from growing further, he could see that she was still a little enraged. Hinata-chan, what happened? What did you see? I sensed something different about Ino but not much from yesterday. It's been upgraded, Naruto-kun. The seal on her. She's barely conscious right now. Can't you feel it draining her stamina? With a frown, Naruto turned his attention to the girl. Knowing that Naruto would likely blow up the room if she reacted badly, Hinata took his hand. Naruto's mind briefly froze when he sensed the platinum blonde's energy. The Kurama inside him roared with rage, too. Hinata's soothing aura drew him in just before his rage was about to explode out of his soul. The girl flinched as he tightened his hold on her hand, but she still grinned. It'll be okay, Naruto-kun. We can do something about her sooner or later. Remember what Shiki-sama said about your Shimarugan. If it can seal just by looking, it should be able to alter or remove seals as well. That's true, Hinata-chan, but we don't know how long it will be before we can even use our new Dujutsu, let alone being able to do something like that. We need to keep a close eye on her. Maybe one of us will be on her team or something. They knew something was happening to the girl that was totally unfair, even though Ino wasn't a friend to either Tina. In fact, she was more of an enemy. They didn't want to watch helplessly as someone was clearly trying to hurt the girl. They were fortunate to be able to think of dozens of ways in which they could assist the girl. Their preparations were abruptly interrupted, though, when Iruka moved to stand in front of the group of Jonin that had entered the room. Everyone in the class, including the two godly genin, sat at attention, curious to find out who would be their sensei. The sixth team piqued their interest as Iruka read out the first few teams. Team 6 will be Biggs Darklighter, Wedge Antilles, and Amy Kogure. Your Jonin sensei will be Jesse Avalanche. I'm sorry about that. Wedge was short and stocky, nearly as tall as Choji, while Biggs was a lanky and somewhat tall teenager. A very attractive woman with brown eyes and brown hair pulled back into a ponytail was their sensei. She gave her team the thumbs up while keeping a hand on her hip. Alright. Let's go. 7th Heaven is having half-off wings until noon and I don't want to miss it. While everyone in the class started to perspire, Amy held up her hand. Sensei, 7th Heaven doesn't allow minors inside. Most of the students, including some of the other Jonin, blushed when Jessie shook her head while her ponytail fluttered in a cute way. You're shinobi and kunoichi now. That rule no longer applies to you. I'll explain once we get there, so let's go. The three of them shrugged and went after her. With a hint of mild amusement, Iruka took care of them. Okay then. Team 7 will be Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha. Yes. In your face, bitches. Sakura jumped out of her chair and gave the students in the room the finger. While Ino finally appeared alert, the majority of the girls complained about her. She slammed a palm on the desk in front of her after realizing what was happening. What the hell? That's so unfair, she huffed as she sank back into her seat, seemingly losing her energy once more. Pouting was equally effective. Iruka went on as Sakura performed a victory dance, much to Sasuke's mild annoyance and slight amusement. And your last teammate will be Naruto Uzumaki. During her dance, Sakura struck an odd pose, and the entire class froze. It was Ino who snickered first, breaking the silence. Sucks to be you, forehead, you get the dead last. Sakura's head shook the room as it struck the desk. Why? Why give me the best hunk of greatness just to give an equally if not more so worse piece of pathetic shit-stained garbage? Kami-sama, you cruel bitch? Hinata was about to jump over the desk and reveal Kami's true cruelty to Sakura, but Naruto had to stop her. Assault both Hikari-sama and Naruto-kun. The bitch has passed away. While Naruto held Sakura, Hinata resorted to aiming death glares at the back of her head. It was sufficient because Sakura went pale once more and felt the same ki from before seemed to concentrate on her a little, pricking her entire back quickly. She made a note to never again offend Kami. Iruka sighed and thought, much later. Your Jonin sensei will be Kakashi Hitaki, who will be here later. However, he had the feeling that Sakura should have been allowed to wait for her outburst. His students had to wait for at least 3 hours more because they knew the silver-haired Jonin. Both Hinata and Naruto let out a sigh. They were aware that their chances of being on each other's teams were slim. They realized that the teams were likely created to balance the genin's potential, even though they had assumed that the Hokage would be inclined to put them together after the previous incident. Because of his grades throughout the academy, Naruto had actually been the dead last. His 4 years of prior failure were not made up for just because he aced the graduation exam. Still, it was awful. Team 8 will be Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, and Hinata Hyuga. Your Jonin sensei will be Kurenai Yuhi. The ex-heiresses thought about a number of things. She was unsure of how to feel about her teammates, to start. Kiba still had a faint lustful aura about her, and Shino was displaying signs of mild animosity. She briefly met the Inuzuka's eyes and noticed a self-assured grin, which gave her the impression that he would soon be displaying his alpha. If Shino's slight fidgeting was any indication, he appeared uneasy. Second, she noticed a tiny grin on her sensei's face as she met her gaze. She was aware of her team before she expelled Hinata. Hinata simply shook her head and grinned back at her sensei's antics. 3. She was disappointed that Naruto and she would not be joining Ino's team to watch over her. She was concerned for the platinum blonde after learning that last fact. Naruto whispered, "We'll figure this out, Hinata-chan." She squeezed his hand under the desk and smiled warmly as she nodded. "Hi, I know Naruto-kun." To the surprise of the entire class, she planted a quick peck on his cheek before getting up to follow Kurenai out the door with her new teammates. The only response that changed as the Inuzuka left out was Kiba's snarl and glare. Iruka coughed into his hand and said, "Couch too good for you, Naruto-cow." His favorite blonde gave him the finger in response. Anyway, Team 9 is still in rotation from last year. Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, and Choji Akamichi. Your Jonin sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. The bearded Jonin advanced and saluted with 2 fingers. Hey, I'm agreeing with that Jessie lady. Let's head to 7th Heaven and grab some food while we get to know each other, my treat. Sound good? Greatest sensei ever. Choji exclaimed, snatched Ino and Shikamaru, and then moved so quickly that it appeared as though he had recreated the Hiraishin. Asuma blinked at the voids where his pupils had been. He said to Iruka, "Wait, you didn't say Akamichi, did you?" Iruka nodded and his cunning smile reappeared. He placed his hands in the prayer position and said, "Rip Asuma's wallet." The bearded Jonin turned pale as the rest of the class did the same. Like a zombie, he approached the door slowly and moaned, "What have I done?" Iruka left Team 7 alone in the room after concluding with the remaining teams. He was aware that he shouldn't wait for Kakashi. He would come back to lock up in a few hours. Sasuke-kun, the Pinkette actually flinched when Sasuke said, "Not interested," with such finality. There was a brief pause during which Naruto genuinely felt pity for the girl after noticing the worn-out expression on her face. She abruptly grimaced and whipped her head in Naruto's direction, so it didn't last. "Hey Baka. You better make sure to not drag me and Sasuke-kun down." In response, a part of the Uzumaki wanted to rip the girl a fresh asshole the size of her forehead. He wanted to at least be friendly with her, but the other part of him was sad to really realize that his crush on her would never have been reciprocated. But a new part of him believed that she was so unimportant right now that recognizing her would actually trigger a massive, catastrophic event that might put thousands and thousands of lives in jeopardy. After blinking, he shrugged and just leaned back, adopting a meditative posture. Sakura yelled angrily at being disregarded, "Baka, I'm speaking to you." Although Sasuke was also becoming more irritated, he was more intrigued by the blonde's lack of interest in the Pinkette. He cursed his own incapacity to find inner peace so easily after glancing back to see the Jinchuriki appearing to meditate. Then he realized that he was thinking about Naruto and questioned whether he hadn't simply fallen asleep, which, to be honest, wasn't such a bad idea. Naruto said calmly, his eyes still closed, "Haruno-san." His tone caused a slight freeze in both of his teammates. "I understand that you hate me. I understand that I was a nuisance constantly asking you out and trying to get close to you. So I'm going to do my best to give you your wishes. I will only interact with you during missions and team exercises. We don't need to pretend to be friends or like each other. However, I ask that you at least extend me the same courtesy and not engage with me unless we're with our sensei. The same to you, Uchiha-san." Sasuke's mouth fell open as swirls entered the Pinkette's eyes. Sakura's mind appeared to explode as Naruto responded to her screams with a well-spoken, "Whwa? What do you, when did you?" Sasuke wondered if Naruto wasn't a hinge of Iruka after experiencing flashbacks to her lectures. Both genin appeared to relax and truly take in what Naruto had said to them after a brief period of time. He gave them a serious glare when they looked at him, letting them know that he was taking his request very seriously and that he was waiting for a responsee, in this case, a confirmation. Don't try to act all cool. I don't know what you're playing at, but you'll never be as cool as Sasuke-kun." Sasuke took a while to reply. He swallowed a lump in his throat when he noticed Naruto's eye darkening. Sasuke was the first to look away with a little grunt after they had been staring at each other for a moment. "Fine with me." "Sasuke-kun?" Sakura asked, shocked that he agreed with the blonde's statement. She chose to do the impossible and sit quietly until their sensei arrived in order to avoid Naruto's glare and Sasuke's. At least the Teme is capable of rationality when necessary. Nevertheless, I wish Sakura-chan weren't such a nerd. Once we have real missions, she'll get hurt or worse. Naruto moaned and palmed his face. "Fuck me. If I want this team to succeed at all, I'm going to have to try to make friends with her and help her get stronger." Given that he lacks the manners to arrive on time for his team's meeting, this Kakashi jerk is unlikely to be of any assistance. Naruto jumped when he heard Fu's voice in his head ask, "Trouble in paradise, Naruto-kun?" "Fu, how is your situation in the castle?" Was followed by a giggle. As she finished, her voice grew solemn. "I'm letting Chome-chan take control of my body for now as an apology." He felt her energy return after a moment of silence. "Anyway, you should come here when you get a chance. Kurama-sama says she wants to try reaching out to another of her siblings. I'm going to let Hinata-chan know in a bit too." Naruto thought it was fantastic that he could talk to Fu despite the fact that they were separated by an unknown number of miles. He grinned to himself because he thought that as time passed, his life would only get better. "All right, when my asshole of a sensei gets here, after I finish meeting with my team, I'll try to be there." Ouch. Sounds rough. Anyway, see ya soon. His thoughts drifted away from Fu. The teen with the whiskers let out another sigh and turned to face his teammates. Sakura appeared to be lost in thought, while Sasuke was in his typical sulky pose. The room's door opened before he could think of anything else. A rather tall man with gray hair that defied gravity stepped in. When Kakashi Hatake, the notorious copycat ninja, first saw all three of his students, he wasn't impressed. Sakura hesitated before asking, Are you our sensei?" With a smile, the cycloptic nin-eye nodded. "Hi, I'm The man was knocked flat on his back by the pinkette before he could finish because a textbook had found its new home in his face. "You're late, you asshole. 3 whole fucking hours." Though shocked by the girl's outburst, Naruto and Sasuke couldn't help but give her a mental pat on the back for doing what they would have done in a different situation. "Nay, Haruno-san. Please don't kill our sensei before we get a chance to learn anything from him, regardless of how much he deserves." Naruto deadpanned as he started to approach their teacher, who was presumed dead. To Naruto's surprise, Sakura simply glared at him without responding with a retort. Instead, she addressed the missing body of their sensei, asking, "Wait, where? What type of sensei can't dodge a book anyway?" With an orange book in hand, Kakashi sat on a classroom windowsill and said, "My first impression is that I hate you all." He disappeared in a tiny whirlpool of leaves after saying, "Now, meet me on the roof in 5 minutes for introductions." Sasuke muttered, "Substitution," and got up to go too. The 3 genin were discovered on the roof a short while later, with Kakashi in front of them, his nose still deep in his book. The tension increased with each second as the genin waited for their sensei to speak, and silence filled the air. Sasuke and Naruto both started clenching their jaws at the man's careless attitude. Naturally, it didn't take long before they realized that their pink-haired teammate had the shortest fuse of all. "For the love of Kami, will you please do your job?" Kakashi closed his book quietly and slowly while grinning at his students. "All right then, let's do introductions." Sakura started to foam at the mouth and did her best to strangle the man, but Naruto and Sasuke had to hold her back. There was no sign of the copycat ninja noticing or caring. "I'll start. My name is Kakashi Hitaki. My likes are too mature for you and my dislikes are too bloody for you. My dreams for the future are none of your business. Now you, Pinky. All you told us was your name, so?" At last the genin gave up. He was already ahead of them. A truly amazing and perilous sensei. The pinkette said, "My name is Sakura Haranoa," with a sadness. She looked at Sasuke and perked up as hearts appeared in her eyes. "My likes are," she said. Nobody missed the action, and Naruto naturally stepped slightly in front of Sasuke to preserve his virginity. The blonde teammate received a silent thank you from the raven-haired nin. "My dislikes are Ino Pig, Naruto Baka, perverts, and now you lazy piece of..." Sakura called Naruto. "What? I'm only talking about Kakashi-sensei." "Oh, we can dig it." One more silence. Sakura laughed and gave the duck-haired shinobi another unobtrusive look. "My dreams for the future is to marry a strong and mysterious clan heir," she exclaimed. Sasuke purposefully hid behind Naruto this time. Sakura had no ambitions and would undoubtedly need to be beaten up by the fangirl, Kakashi said with a sigh. To Sasuke, Kakashi said, "Next, Duckbutt." The teenager spoke despite glaring at the moniker. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I have few likes and many dislikes. I have an ambition, not a dream. To kill a certain man." Naruto scowled in response. Even though he didn't like Sasuke, they had a tense friendship that ended after the Uchiha clan massacre a few years ago. Naruto was aware that Sasuke was referring to Itachi Uchiha, his older brother. Naruto could actually sense Sasuke's rage and suffering because he harbored such hatred within himself. The raven-haired boy had never displayed such a wide range of emotions in his aura. "I believe I have a basic understanding of you, Sasuke. Is this one of Shiki-sama's abilities?" The boy's words didn't even make Sakura swoon. Like she did in the classroom, she paused to truly consider her teammates. "I like Sasuke-kun because of this, but his dream is a little frightening." The final devoted Uchiha, pondered Kakashi, but does he have more loyalty to his clan or the village? Last but maybe least, Mr. Sunshine. The blonde dismissed the moniker with a shrug. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Nae." Kakashi definitely didn't make the same mistake as his teammates, but they did. He narrowed his only visible eye for a split second. As his team began to perspire, he trailed off, saying, "My likes are Hinata-chan, my friends, ramen, and training in that order." Though ramen and training might be tied now, a tiny leak of ki actually made his 2 teammates shudder. "My dislikes are those who prey on the innocent, rapists, etc. The general scum of the earth. People who judge others without getting to know them and anyone that would harm those I care about." Kakashi simply observed that the boy appeared to be concealing a great deal of potential. "My dreams? No, my goals for the future are to be with the people I love, and the people who deserve it, and to live up to my family legacy." The fact that Naruto made no mention of becoming Hokage astounded everyone. Sakura and Sasuke were even more perplexed by that final detail. His team genuinely missed the part about taking lives as he sped past it. Inquiringly, family legacy? What do you mean, Dobi? Sasuke asked. He had always believed Naruto to be from a lower clan outside of Konoha, or at the very least, to be clanless. He didn't really think about it. Sakura corrected herself. Yeah, aren't you clanless, ba? Naruto and Sasuke were also taken aback by this. When she asked, the blonde shook his head. I found out that the Uzumaki were a clan. A powerful one at that. So powerful, actually, that they helped found Konoha. Haven't you two heard of Mito Uzumaki? The name caused their eyes to widen. Sakura slapped her forehead and said, how could we have missed the fact that the first Hokage's wife was an Uzumaki? Sasuke questioned, wait, so you're related to the first Hokage too? For the time being, Kakashi simply listened to his students while putting the information away. He was curious about Naruto's true level of knowledge, and how he had known in the first place. Naruto turned to face Kakashi and said, I don't think so. I think Mito may have just been a relative. My mother was Kushina Uzumaki. My direct family came to Konoha when the third Hokage had just begun his reign. The Jonin understood the message. He is aware of. Sakura thought, Kushina. I don't think I heard that name before. Naruto began, for the better. She died during the Kyuubi attack the day I was born. Sakura covered her mouth with her hands as she gasped. Sasuke simply clenched his jaw. He paused, then said, my family was murdered, but the Dobi didn't even get to know his. What about your father, or any other family? Naruto was taken aback by Sasuke's apparent concern. Naruto began, my father is classified. I know who he is, but he was a powerful shinobi with lots of enemies. He also died when the Kyuubi attacked though. A powerful ninja that's classified. Who? Kakashi cleared his throat before Sakura could say anything more. That's a lot to take in, Naruto. How did you find out about these things? Hokage let me read some of the books he has in his office. I don't think he meant to leave this one on his desk, but it was the history of Uzushiogakure. Sakura asked, the village of Werlul? Naruto gave a nod. Sakura and Sasuke were both shivering from another wave of ki, but they couldn't help but feel sorry for the Jinchuriki. My clan's home village. Destroyed by those afraid of what they didn't understand. But Kakashi shifted the topic before they could ask any more questions. His remarks did not immediately draw the genin's attention. Well, it's nice to know about your heritage, Naruto, but today we're here to start your own legacies. Sakura and Sasuke began to view the blonde differently and wanted to ask more questions. However, the Jinchuriki were aware of Kakashi's actions and concluded that it would be best for his teammates to stop questioning him about it. As it was, he had likely given away too much. However, Sasuke thought hesitantly, but even if the Dobi is from a clan, he's still a Dobi. The Baka is still not Uchiha, even though he isn't clanless. Inner Sakura let out a squeal. Naruto felt as though he and his teammates had taken one step backward and two steps forward for some reason. Kakashi said, receiving perplexed looks in return, so for starters, you three aren't really genin yet. Sakura inquired, what do you mean, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi thought the three would react more strongly. I mean, there's one more test. The test at the academy was just to weed out those who have no potential to become shinobi whatsoever. Tomorrow, you will take a test that has a 66% rate of failure. If you fail, you'll be sent back to the academy. Sasuke gritted his teeth and Sakura went pale. All Naruto did was roll his eyes. Whatever Kakashi had in store for them, he wasn't underestimating it. He was unsure of his ability to defeat the Jonin. But he knew they would have minimal issues if it was just a test to see if they were ready to be genin. Furthermore, since Sakura and Sasuke don't appear to be total jerks, they would most likely. Without even glancing at Naruto, Sasuke said, you better not hold us back, Dobi. Though not as severe as usual, Sakura's remark, yeah Baka. You've got a long way to go to make your clan proud. Still annoyed the blonde a little. Perhaps he should have held back on telling them so much. Kakashi let out a sigh at his pupils. What a waste of teamwork. This is going to be another failure, it seems. The Cycloptic Nin stood and gestured to the three. We'll have the test tomorrow at Training Ground 6. Be there by 6 a.m. and don't eat anything. You'll definitely end up throwing up. He departed via Shunshin after saying that. Both Sasuke and Naruto immediately stood up and started walking in different directions. Sakura looked between them, puzzled for a moment. A part of her wanted to run after Sasuke right away, But another part of her was shocked that Naruto didn't even say goodbye to Hera or them. They're completely them. Did he truly change that much after learning about his family? Does that explain why he and Hinata now appear to be so close? Sakura winced in response to the idea. She had little affection for Hinata and disliked Naruto. However, for some reason, it felt wrong that Naruto didn't bow down to her. She sighed in defeat, having already lost sight of both boys in her thoughts. She made the decision to go home herself since she had nothing else to do. Hinata was on the verge of collapse. Kiba had approached her and tried to flirt as soon as they had left the classroom. Typically, Kiba would merely make insignificant remarks here and there, but now he was being a bit too handsy and was blatantly invading Hinata's personal space. He was dissuaded by their sensei's brief glare as they passed through the town. Kurenai glanced at Hinata and realized that the apparently bashful girl might have lost her temper if Kiba had continued for much longer. Without coming across as impolite, Shino moved away from Hinata and toward Kurenai. Her presence still seemed to agitate him, but not as much as it did when she and Naruto were together. He had even had a brief conversation with her, informing her that although his hive was still a little restless, they should get along just fine. She realized that it was a Hokage-bound secret, but she could tell he was holding his tongue when she asked why her aura initially made his bugs agitate. For the time being, he would hope that he and Hinata would get along well enough to divulge some secrets and maybe even find a way to quiet his hive. Kurenai guided them to a tiny bakery that had a seating area. She didn't want to acknowledge that she had become addicted to the place that Enko had shown her some time ago. The aroma of freshly baked bread and cinnamon filled the air as soon as the door opened. The woman behind the counter gave her a familiar greeting before flinching when she realized who was with her. The clerk was shaking and said, "Kei Kurenai-san, please tell me you didn't just bring a Hyuga in here?" Kurenai responded, a little taken aback by the woman's response. "What? Yes, of course. This is my new genin squad and we were going to spend some time together here. Did she treat the Hyuga unfairly?" She paused in disbelief as she looked around to see how her students were responding. Kiba and Shino were standing a few feet away from Hinata, who had her hair pulled back from her eyes and felt a lot of pressure. Kurenai called tentatively, "H. Hinata." Hinata's voice sounded crackly as she said, "C. Cinnamon. Buns. Cinnamon. Rolls. Cinnamon. Bread. So much." Her shaking seemed to get worse. As Akamaru whimpered in his jacket, Kiba retreated even further. Sensei." The clerk yelled, "Kurenai-san. Most Hyugas have a pastry addiction, borderline fetish," and started to dash to the rear of the shop. The Jonin remained perplexed. She believed the clerk must be exaggerating, and she was concerned about her only female student. "Cinnamon. Cinnamona. Cinnamon," Hinata exclaimed, her eyes lightening. The glass on each display case broke before anyone realized what was going on. Hinata was surrounded by a white aura that roared around her like a tornado. While Kurenai skidded back and crashed into several tables, Kiba and Shino were both knocked off their feet. The Jonin felt the power roll off of Hinata, and her eyes widened. The red-eyed woman was genuinely afraid and unable to speak. Since the third Hokage discovered that Naruto had substituted shredded gum for his preferred brand of nicotine, she had not experienced such an oppressive aura. Hinata disappeared right in front of her. The room's aura also disappeared. Kurenai noticed that the door had been blown off its hinges after hearing a scream in the rear of the shop. "Kiba, Shino, are you two all right?" Despite coughing, the boys acknowledged that they were not gravely hurt. She looked around hesitantly after nodding. She was shocked to discover that everything that appeared to be based on cinnamon was gone. Even the air itself had lost its cinnamon scent. As she turned to face the back room, a feeling of dread gripped her. Out of habit, she drew a kunai and walked slowly over. "Hinata. Are you in there? Are you okay?" Pastries and other food items dropped from the ceiling as she walked over shattered tables and glass. It appeared as though an exploding tag had detonated inside the entire store. The Jonin's anxiety increased with each crunch underfoot. As she arrived at the door, she cautiously peered inside and heard moaning and slurping. When she noticed Hinata with the female clerk pinned underneath her, her eyes widened. Tears were streaming down the woman's cheeks, and she appeared terrified, holding a cinnamon bun dripping with cinnamon glaze. Hinata sat on her stomach. The cinnamon trickled down the girl's chin and onto her heaving chest while she licked at the bun. Her eyes were as glazed as the roll, and her cheeks were flushed pink. The clerk was also covered in cinnamon. Her work shirt was torn, exposing a good portion of her cleavage. Hinata sucked on her fingers to remove the glaze after she had eaten the cinnamon bun she was holding. As she slurped them cleanly, each finger popped. She then leaned over and started sucking the cinnamon from the clerk's skin, causing her to whimper with pleasure as well as fear. The woman puckered her lips as she slurped the sugar that collected between her breasts, right in her cleavage, and the genin's tongue lapped up the light glaze that curved with her mounds. Kurenai's eyes were unable to leave the scene, but she was motionless as she watched it, her own cheeks burning red. Before long, the woman's eyes locked with the clerk's, and she begged for their assistance. However, Hinata went lower and took one of the woman's nipples into her mouth, but it was too late. As Hinata used chakra on her tongue to make sure she didn't miss a drop of cinnamon, the woman's back arched and her eyes rolled to the back of her head. The woman appeared to faint as a pool of liquid appeared beneath her skirt and her tongue dropped out of her mouth. Hinata leaned up, satisfied that she had removed all of the cinnamon from the woman. On the corner of her mouth was a trickle of cinnamon, and Kurenai swore she also saw milk. The girl licked her lips and giggled, then looked around for something to eat. At last, Kurenai yelled, "Hinata," as she emerged from her own daze. "Eat." Hinata scrambled at the cry. Glancing around, she froze as the light came back into her eyes. "Oh no!" Her gaze gradually moved to the woman below her, whose face was filled with pure joy. Hinata screamed, "Oh no, oh no, oh no. I did it again," and hurried away from the woman, getting ready to flee the store. Again. "Hinata, what is going on?" The girl tried to run past Kurenai, but Kurenai caught her. Kurenai wouldn't let Hinata go even though she was crying. "This curse. The curse of delicious, melty, cinnamon. I can't escape it, Kurenai-sensei," Hinata gasped. Kurenai was still perplexed, but she was certain that she would have to get rid of everything cinnamon-based from her entire home. Kurenai comforted the girl for a while before leading her genin out of the store, leaving cash to cover the cost of the food and any damages for when the clerk awoke. She let out a sigh, realizing that she would need to formally apologize to the establishment. She had to first determine what the hell had happened to Hinata. Even Kiba and Shino were now walking quite a distance away from her, giving her frightened looks. Kurenai called in frustration, "So, seventh heaven then?" and received forceful nods from Kiba and Shino as well as a whimper from the lone Hyuga. "Son of a mother bitch." A tiny explosion followed the scream. Beyond the pagoda, which stood proudly in the collective mindscape, a cloud of dust rose into the air and drifted off into the distance. As she stood nearly 24 meters from Kurama and the sizable crater she had made with a single foot stomp, Fu questioned, "Is it really that serious, Kurama-sama?" The Biju with the dark skin let out a frustrated groan. A wall of sand and roaring wind stood about 100 meters ahead of her. She now knew that her youngest sister, Shukaku, lived inside a desert biome gate that was closer than ever. Kurama knew something had to have happened to her sister and or her Jinchuriki because the raging sandstorm had abruptly gotten worse that morning. "I'm free to do what I want, but until I can regain at least my full strength and then some, I can't reach out to the others. I don't understand. You and Chomei Imouto were easy enough to contact. Shukaku is closer than you guys are, but I can't even get her seal to appear. Either they have a sealing master even greater than the fourth Hokage, which is extremely unlikely, or she and her Jinchuriki have been being put under increasing duress for a long time." She was aware that it was the latter. She could sense the pain and rage from her position outside the biome, even though she was unable to communicate with her sibling. What she must be going through, or worse, putting her Jinchuriki through, was beyond the tiny redhead's comprehension. Sadly, she was aware that she, Naruto, and Hinata were not yet strong enough to break through the barrier and seal as they were. She couldn't break the seal with Shukaku in that condition, even if she were at her strongest. She had initially hoped that Chomei and Fu could assist, but it turned out that she was unable to use all of her abilities within the shared mindscape while Chomei was still sealed inside Fu. Furthermore, because of Fu's prior behavior on the Biju, Chomei and Fu were only able to activate one tail of their cloak together. Despite her best efforts to conceal it, Kurama was genuinely concerned about Shukaku. Being the weakest of the tailed beast, the Biju's emotions were always erratic. She also detested acknowledging that she had never supported Shukaku as she ought to have. Since humans were weaker than her, the youngest Biju had been the first to attack them after becoming enraged with her siblings. The wall of sand and wind turned out to be a barrier that not only physically separated the young Biju from her sibling but also symbolized the emotional distance between them, causing tears to well up in her eyes. Fu saw the smaller girl's shoulders start to shake and walked up to her, asking, "Kurama-sama?" Her stomach dropped when she heard someone sniffle. She never imagined that the great Kyuubi would be in tears. It's fine. Just, Give me a moment. She only needed the moment. She quickly collected herself and gave Shukaku a final, hopeless glance at the barrier. Kurama thought resolutely, hold on just a bit longer Imouto. I'll come for you, and then she turned to gesture for Fu to follow her back to the castle. The two would miss the storm's brief subsidence as they left. Hinata and Naruto had just arrived at the castle when the two of them returned. A dark cloud formed over Hinata as she ran to a corner and pulled her knees to her chest just as they were ready to greet them. Naruto asked the sullen girl, Hinata-chan, is everything okay? Instead, she didn't look back, just shook her head. I'm a deviant Naruto-kun. I'm impure. The temptation of cinnamon is just too powerful. Run before I attack you too. At the girl's words, Naruto, Fu, and Kurama all started to perspire. They could sense her embarrassment and despair as the dark cloud over her grew. To the surprise of the brooding girl, Naruto went up behind her and knelt down, drawing her into his chest. Hinata-chan, whatever happened can't be that bad. How did your meeting with your team go? The memories of her meeting with her team made the ex-Hyuga shiver with depression, but she briefly relaxed in his arms. But she was also a little excited and shivered when she thought about what had happened in the bakery. The idea of Naruto pinning her down and licking cinnamon off her bare chest made her savor the sensation of Naruto's arms around her. The girl's intense sense of lust exploded, striking Naruto in the face. The room glowed as his eyes grew wide and his face flushed. Kurama and Fu sensed it too. Kurama licked her lips and had to restrain herself from leaping at the two in front of her, but the mint-haired Jinchuriki was a little embarrassed. Fu rubbed her thighs together and said, what the hell was that? Kurama, who was able to keep herself together better than Fu despite the dangerously hungry expression in her eyes, replied, looks like this place is still unstable. Since this technically is still a conjoined mindscape, your inner thoughts and feelings are capable of being physically projected. Fu turned pale. Isn't that dangerous? Not for us. We all pretty much share in most feelings already anyway. Her blush hardened as the mint-haired Jinchuriki scratched her cheek. Sounds kinky, she whispered. After listening, Hinata shook her head and made an effort to relax. She spun around in Naruto's grasp and gave him a firm embrace. To the embarrassment of both him and Fu, as well as the mild amusement and longing of Kurama, she withdrew and kissed him on the lips, saying, it doesn't matter for now, Naruto-kun. What did you want to talk about Kurama? Remembering her unsuccessful attempt to get in touch with her youngest sister made the red-haired Biju sober up. I was hoping you two would be able to help me break the barrier on my sister Shukaku. She's not doing hot if that sandstorm is any indication. Unfortunately, I'm not strong enough to do it alone yet. But seeing how strong the barrier is, I'm not sure you two could help either now. After exchanging anxious looks, the divine pair got up and decided to assist. To allay the Biju's fears, Naruto smiled like a fox. Don't worry Kurama. We'll definitely save her and the other Biju too. Even though she was beginning to feel a strong connection with the blonde, she couldn't help but find his smile consoling this one time. Normally, his self-assurance was contagious, but she had a sneaking suspicion that this wasn't the case. Observing the expression, Hinata scowled. Even she was unsure, even though she aspired to Naruto's level of confidence. Something very significant was beginning to dawn on her. They didn't know how to apply their skills. Still, the group followed Kurama back to the desert gate where Shukaku was kept, and they said nothing. Since they had just left, the whipping sandstorm appeared to have gotten worse. Kurama's heart ached at what she saw and whimpered, what the hell is going on in there? Unfazed by the impenetrable wall of wind and sand, Naruto said, all right, so what do we need to do? We need attempt to bring forth the seal. Then we'll need to decode it and reverse it, effectively unsealing it. If this was the physical world, something like this would be painful and probably life-threatening. Since this isn't a part of the real world, it won't be painful to the Jinchuriki or Biju. However, that makes actually getting the physical seal to appear within this mindscape is even harder, especially since they're so far away. Hinata nodded in agreement, but it only increased her anxiety. Can you tell where they are? Your sister and her Jinchuriki? Kurama gave a headshake. I have a general direction based upon the location of the biome, but not a clear distance or coordinate. She's somewhere to the southwest. Not far right now, but it's also closer than usual as well. Fu questioned, closer than usual? The Biju gave another nod. I've noticed if you guys are on the move, your biome shifts. Shukaku's has moved the most, but it remains in the southwest. I've noticed a huge biome to the northeast that shifts and occasionally splits in two. I think two of my siblings are together or at least really close. The former Hyuga appeared to consider what she had said for a while, but she shook her head, pale with realization. Fu put a hand on her shoulder after noticing. Is everything okay? Hinata gave the girl a brief thank you for her concern, but she also smiled to diffuse the situation. Yes, it's fine. I was thinking of places that I know in each of those directions. It's safe to say Shukaku must be either in the land of rivers or the land of wind. Both of those are southwest of Fire Country where we reside. Though, if there is a sandstorm, it's like the land of wind Suna village. Fu's eyebrows went up. Isn't Suna deep in wind country? That's way past the land of rivers. Didn't you say she was close, Kurama-sama? She gestured back towards the castle, and they could see a big mountain and storm clouds in the sky far beyond the tallest pagoda. Yeah, but whoever there could be on a mission. Just like with the two who are to the northwest. I can't reach that. Once I get even halfway there, the storm gets so bad that I just can't traverse it. It's too far to get to through the spirit realm as well. Hinata went pale again, but no one seemed to notice. Together, their worries struck the girl in the Mindscape, and she turned to face the anxious faces in embarrassment. Naruto said, Hinata-chan. First. The former Hyuga approached him and gave him a hug. I'm sorry. It's just, I know for a fact what village is in that direction. It's far away, and there's even a few smaller countries separating us. She appeared to shiver in Naruto's arms, which perplexed him. It brought back too many memories of the timid and submissive Hinata she had been not so long ago. There was none of the confidence she had recently exuded. He stroked her hair and rubbed her back, whispering into her ear, Hinata, talk to us. She took a while to answer. She just hummed into his chest and relished his consoling gestures, trying not to cry when she thought about the past. Kurama and Fu stood in silence. While Kurama was torn between worrying about Hinata and Shukaku, Fu felt a little out of place. The village in that direction is in the land of lightning, the hidden cloud village, Kumogakure. After struggling to recall why that felt familiar, Naruto recalled a time several years ago when Hinata had missed several weeks of school. At that time, the third Hokage had instructed him to behave well and to avoid the Hokage building at all costs. Naruto, being the innocent and inquisitive child that he was, sneaked in anyhow and saw people with dark skin for the first time in his life. At first, he wasn't sure how to react to the strangely dressed individuals, and his main curiosity was about the kind of ramen they were eating in their home country. He eventually snuck away because he was tired of not understanding what the people were talking about with the Hokage. But for a long time afterward, he did recall that the Hokage was utterly incensed. He initially believed that he was upset with him because the Hokage had completely cut off communication with Naruto during the weeks that Hinata was also absent from class. He recalled that the Hokage had mentioned cloud rats and sacrificing Hyuga in the few occasions he had attempted to speak with him. Before Hinata could even finish telling the story, his eyes grew wide as he started to comprehend it. When I was a child, I was almost kidnapped by Kumogakure, she said. To their surprise, the surroundings started to shift. They showed up in what appeared to be a traditional Japanese home. As Hinata surveyed her former bedroom, she was astounded as well. Hinata started to say, wait, this is, but the scene started to play. From Hinata contentedly studying to the moment a cloaked figure entered her room and gagged her, it described every detail. Only a few shaky voices could be heard as the majority of the scene went dark. The three onlookers, however, became hostile after hearing a confirmation that she was still pure in a single instance. Fu, Kurama, and especially Naruto were all made even more angry by Hinata's tears. But Hinata exuded a serene aura that let them keep viewing the scene in its entirety. Hinata woke up in the vision just in time to see her father saving her. She couldn't recall the expression in his eyes. He appeared to be desperate to keep her safe. Tears threatened to spill from his eyes, matching the anger. He went to Hinata right away after eliminating the Kumo spy to see if she was hurt. The man was obviously afraid of losing his daughter, and Hinata's heart broke when she saw the memory so vividly for the first time since it had occurred. What took place? Who is this man who has since claimed to be my father, and where is he now? As she watched her younger self give Hiashi a strong embrace and the man return the favor, she pondered. Hinata herself could only conclude that the memory itself had to be a fabrication because it was such an alien sight. After that, all they could hear were whispered conversations that young Hinata could understand. As restitution for, unjustly, killing a foreign dignitary, Hisashi Hyuga, Hiashi's twin brother, clearly offered himself to Kumo in his brother's place. Sarutobi caving into the perverse demands of the Cloud Village disgusted Naruto. The incident not only traumatized Hinata, But Kumo got away with it and the Hyuga clan as a whole lost by merely defending their heiress. The memory vanished in a flash of red heat from the pit of wrath that was created inside the three outside observers. Hinata flinched, taking in the anger all at once. Her recoil caused their rage to fade once more, if only briefly. As Fu and Naruto tried to soothe the former Hyuga, Kurama fell silent for a while. She was concerned about the Jinchuriki of two of her siblings if they were in such a situation. Naruto and Fu were one and the same. To some extent, they were still quite young. However, the others might have already been weaponized or worse if they were adults. Given that the Jinchuriki were enemies, she questioned whether she would actually be able to save both the Biju and the Jinchuriki after glancing at Naruto and Fu. Her stomach dropped when she realized she couldn't save them. She slapped her cheeks and shook her head, unwilling to think about the worst. Hey! We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, Hinata-chan. Just know that we're here now and nothing like that will ever happen again. If Kumo wants to come take you, they'll need to get through all of us first. Both Fu and Naruto nodded, although Fu hadn't considered that she was several hundred miles away. At the Biju's words, Hinata herself wiped away her tears and grinned. Arigato, Kurama-chan. They paused for a few seconds before getting back to business. As they returned their focus to the desert biome, Kurama faltered due to her previous concerns. Still hopeful, Naruto said, "Okay, so we need to make the seal appear, right?" Kurama's feelings and Hinata's story were affecting him more than he wanted to acknowledge. He was concealing it, unaware that everyone else was doing the same. Kurama started to transform into her fallen Biju form and flooded the area with her dense chakra, saying, "Yeah. Come on, let's give it a shot." Fu moved forward and used the small portion of Chomei's chakra that she was able to access. The tiny glow of their divine chakra, which nearly matched Kurama's, overcame Naruto and Hinata as they started to concentrate on the energy they used to kill Mizuki. For a brief moment, Fu was astounded by the tremendous strength emanating from the trio beside her. "Can I do that too? Holy SHT? She pondered. She felt all of their power start to focus, bringing her focus back to the barrier. Kurama's chakra started to attempt to match hers, but she felt it pull the barrier. She tried the same, but almost instantly felt strained. But all four were blasted away from the sandstorm barrier, so her strain was short-lived. Although Kurama managed to land upright, the three ninja were hurled into trees, causing minor cuts and craters to appear on the ground. She sensed that all three were okay when she heard coughing coming from the growing cloud of dust. Waving the smoke from his face, Naruto made his first appearance. As Kurama started to revert to her humanoid form, he staggered back towards her and exclaimed, what the hell happened?" Soon after, Hinata and Fu staggered out of the forest. Kurama clenched her fist and growled in frustration, "What did you guys do?" Fu and Hinata were perplexed by the girl's rage. Naruto's eyebrows went up. "You said we needed to make the seal appear, right? I hit it with everything I had." Kurama's mouth fell open in surprise. Nobody could miss the rage in her voice as she asked, "What do you mean you hit it with everything you had?" It was now her turn to be perplexed by her rage. "What are you getting upset about? You fucking idiot. You could have killed us, or Shukaku and her Biju. We were trying to make the seal appear, not force our way in like a freaking battering ram." Naruto raised his hands and developed a tick mark. "Well, how the hell was I supposed to know that?" Kurama and Hinata reached the same conclusion. As Kurama collapsed to the ground in defeat, Hinata moaned in shame. Hinata moaned, "We can't do it. We can't do anything." Naruto's frustration increased as he glanced between the two. They were behaving strangely. "What are you two on about? What can't we do?" With a sigh, the youthful Kami approached her lover, took his hands tenderly, and planted a kiss on his lips to soothe him. Naruto returned the favor, but it was clear from his irritated expression that he was still seeking clarification. "Naruto-kun. We don't know how to use our powers properly. Hell, we've only been shinobi for a day. We need experience. In lots of things. Tell me, how much do you know about sealing?" Naruto finally realized why they failed after hearing her words. As Hinata comfortingly put her arms around him, he muttered, "Shit." Fu regarded the oppressed trio with suspicion. Another first was this. She was absolutely not pleased to see the group so defeated. "Hey, chin up guys. If your power is anything to go by, a little time out in the field and some studying will have you guys busting open this seal in no time." She tried to be optimistic, but she realized right away that she wasn't very good at it. Kurama's "just shut up" glare made her withdraw into herself, and no one paid attention to what she had to say. She didn't want to leave them in misery, though, because their moods seemed to be constantly plummeting. Hey, I know I'm the new girl here, and I didn't make such a good first impression. Kurama snarled, not helping now either. Even though the jab hurt a little, Fu ignored it and went on. But, you can't lose faith. Look, I'm here. Kurama-sama, you were able to get to me with relative ease, right? Yeah, and I still don't completely understand why. Maybe the person who sealed Chome in you was just an incompetent moron. The mint-haired Jinchuriki gave another flinch. She was upset that Kurama had inadvertently offended Taki's village chief, Shibuki, and she bit her tongue. One of the few people Fu cared about, too. Regardless, she mumbled. It's not impossible. If you guys work on your own abilities while Kurama-sama and Chome-chan look into the seal here, we should be able to do something eventually. Kurama gave an eye roll. Eventually? Shukaku is suffering right now, something you probably don't care about, right? She's probably just another monster or rodent to you. The Mindscape shook as Fu's spike of rage shattered the ground. What the fuck is your problem? Kurama got to his feet and glared gravely. Despite being smaller than Fu in her human form, she exuded an intimidating aura. My problem is having to listen to a hypocrite like you. You were just like the rest of those fucked up humans just a few days ago, hating and shunning something you didn't understand. You probably only care about the oh-so-innocent human she's sealed in, right? No care for the monster that had its freedom stolen and forcefully sealed against her will. Even though she was crying, Fu clenched her fist. I already know I was ignorant, you don't need to throw that in my face. And what about you? You've been screaming this whole time about Shukaku this, and Shukaku that. What about the Jinchuriki? Yeah, they could be like I was, or even worse. But now it sounds like you're discriminating against humans. What if he's just like Naruto? Kurama was the next to wince. Her astonishment, however, was short-lived as her aura intensified and the surrounding environment started to tremble. Hey! Naruto yelled as he stood, bringing even more pressure and heat to the area. Both of you knock it the fuck off right now. The ire of Kurama and Fu didn't seem to go away. If anything, it seemed to grow because of Naruto's meddling. The two women appeared to be about to strike each other. Naruto's anger grew as a result of theirs. I said knock it the fuck off, he screamed this time, violently shaking the realm around them and sending everyone else to the ground. When they all turned to face the former Jinchuriki, they saw his eyes gleaming like the sun with her hand on his back and her eyes a whirlpool of flowers and mist. Hinata stood behind him. They were both perspiring as they momentarily accidentally used their sealed dujutsu. In the next, they fell to their knees and their eyes returned to normal. The group experienced a prolonged period of intense silence. Fu stood up first, her legs trembling from bearing the aura surrounding her. Before she vanished from the mindscape, she only said, sorry. A pause in the air choked Kurama's words. She snarled once more and struck the ground with a fist, breaking it within 10 meters. Fuck! The Biju screamed, holding back the tears of regret and annoyance. Hinata and Naruto gave the Biju a sorrowful glance. She started to wipe her eyes after noticing their feelings and then got up. Before slowly returning to the castle, she said, please let me be alone for a while. Though they didn't know how, the divine pair wanted to console her. The two also vanished from the mindscape, having no other option. Naruto woke up too early the following morning. Half an hour before his alarm was set to go off, he sat up in bed. For the first time in a long time, his body hurt. He was aware that the events in the mindscape were the only thing that had truly worn him out mentally. He chose to just relax until his alarm sounded. In any case, he had to think. He was ashamed to admit that he wasn't accustomed to doing it. To begin with, he was aware that neither Kurama nor Fu were truly at fault. Kurama had the worst first encounter with her while Fu was attempting to help them. The tension from failing the seal probably got to Kurama, even though they both appeared to be trying to change it, Kurama trying to accept Fu herself, and Fu trying to accept her Biju and her fate. Naruto felt his stomach coil and moaned. A part of him knew that he was partly to blame. As usual, he hurried into the situation without thinking and was too strong-willed. However, everyone else also shared some of the blame for the meltdown. He realized that despite having the Shinigami's power, he was still a recently graduated genin. Even if he had more spiritual and physical energy, he would still need to practice applying it. He also came to the realization that he had no idea how strong he or Hinata truly were. Their divine energy was very limited, and they had no idea how to use it. At times, it appeared to be linked to their feelings, and at other times, it seemed like they could just access it like a chakra. It also highlighted the fact that Naruto knew very little about being a ninja. After turning into a Shinigami, He came to the realization that his academy naivete would have ultimately cost him and his allies their lives. In fact, he was certain that the majority of those who graduated most likely shouldn't have. I now see why there is such a high failure rate in the test Kakashi is referring to. He thought for a moment that he was too stupid to truly take his shinobi career seriously before the incident a few days earlier, at least for the people like me. But I think I have time. Before we can become proper gods, Hinata-chan and I must learn how to be proper shinobi. Naruto sighed deeply and turned off the alarm before it even started to ring. He started getting ready for his first and hopefully last day as a Konoha shinobi. He wasn't shocked to see Sakura waiting there, leaning against a tree on the edge of the clearing and appearing to be a little sleepy. I wonder how long she's been here. He wouldn't rule out the possibility that the pinkhead arrived an hour early. He noticed the 3 logs off to the side, just outside the clearing's center, as he walked over. There was something suspicious about them. He could see a large stone that appeared to have been man-made in a small river a short distance away. It was almost ornamental. As he got closer, Sakura yawned. "Hey, Naruto." When she wasn't swooning over Sasuke or attempting to turn his brain into liquid mush, the blonde blushed a little and had to admit that the girl was cute. With a hint of humor, he walked over to the tree beside hers and leaned against it, facing her, calling, "Sup Sakura-chan." He teased, "Get a good sleep?" He nearly laughed at the weary look he received. "Oh hardy har. I was too nervous to sleep. I got here 10 minutes ago but only got like 2 hours of actual sleep." The blonde nodded and let out a sigh. "Yeah, I was pretty much in the same boat. Actually woke up about an hour ago and just laid in bed for 30 minutes. She acknowledged with a and yawned once more. "Did you eat?" After giving her a nod, he took a tiny energy ration bar out of his pouch. She scowled after catching it. "Kakashi-sensei told us not to eat though." "Yeah, but if we're going to be doing something that's going to make us throw up, especially on limited sleep, I think it better to have something in the stomach for energy. Don't need to eat a 5-course meal or anything, but not eating anything at all is stupid." Sakura was taken aback by Naruto's consideration once more. He was turning out to be very different from the academy boy she believed she detested. It's likely that this was the first time they had a one-on-one conversation that didn't begin with him attempting to date her and end with her making his face fall to the ground. She didn't realize how nice it was. Before she could think about it any longer, Sasuke appeared in the clearing looking a little gaunt. He observed the two and was taken aback when Sakura gave him a hesitant smile before focusing on the ration bar she was holding and Naruto simply nodded in his direction. When Sasuke got close enough, he asked, "What are you eating?" He was only a little queasy about the girl's near inhalation of the bar. Sakura politely blushed in response to Sasuke's inquisitive gaze. "A ration brought by Naruto. If you'd like, I have another. I assumed neither of you would eat anything." Naruto responded with a knowing smile as Sasuke blushed indignantly, scoffed, but his stomach growled a moment later. "Kakashi-sensei told us." "Yes, I am aware. However, a lack of energy will make the test more difficult. Again, don't worry about vomiting or anything else because we won't be eating a full-course meal. And if his tardiness is a recurring issue, I'm sure you'll have enough time to process it." At that moment, both of his teammates hesitated, Sakura asking if he had any more rations, while Sasuke took the ration without further thought. Naruto took a meditative stance once more and started to think about everything that had happened recently, but he avoided going into his Mindscape because he was still unsure of what to do about Fu and Kurama and wanted to give them both time to calm down. The 3 of them ate one more piece before they settled down for a little rest. It was soothing when neither Sakura nor Naruto bothered Sasuke. Sakura remembered what Naruto had said to her and Sasuke in class, and she felt her stomach turn a little as she glanced between the boys and saw Sasuke looking thoughtful and Naruto once again meditating as he had done the day before. She would have immediately agreed with his assessment and his words. He said that I hate him and he doesn't want us to interact outside of missions and training. However, part of her restless night was realizing she didn't hate the blonde at all. In fact, she tossed and turned as she recalled all the kind things he had said to her that she had at first found annoying. The previous night had been a confused mess for her, which ultimately resulted in her lack of sleep, but she pushed all those thoughts away, especially when she considered that failing the test Kakashi had set for them had a chance of failing by more than 50%. Maybe he realized that too. It would explain why he was willing to share his food with me and Sasuke-kun. She recalled that Naruto had called her Sakura-chan when he greeted her a little while ago, not realizing she was blushing. "I guess if we're going to be on a team together we should act cordial at least. He's so different now. Was it all just an act in the academy? They do say deception is a ninja's greatest asset. But as soon as she thought that, she shook that away. No way. Maybe he's just trying to be more mature. If that's the case, we all should try to make this work. Yeah, she said, taking another look at the pinkette and the meditating genin. Sasuke was talking about the nightmares from a few hours ago while Sakura was finding a new resolve to work with. He would have the same vivid dream about his family being assassinated every month, regardless of how long it had been. Damn it. Itachi, he clenched his fist and growled, but his teammates didn't notice. We'll need his head in the game for Kakashi-sensei though. Hopefully the thought of gaining another step towards his ambition will keep him focused. Naruto felt a little of Sasuke's emotions but ignored them, knowing what he must have been thinking. The arrival of the cycloptic nin in a whirl of leaves didn't take long. Hey, I apologize for being late. On the path to life, I became disoriented. He started to perspire when his 3 genin just gave him bored looks. Good morning, sensei. They all called as they stepped forward to stand side by side in front of him. Oh, did you guys not hear me? Kakashi inquired, but his genin faces remained unchanged. Naruto responded sternly, we're ready for the test, Kakashi-sensei. With a clumsy back rub, the silver-haired Jonin said, yeah, okay. In their minds, Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto were rejoicing in their refusal to accept the man's nonsense. This test will be similar to the missions you may receive if you become a fully fledged shinobi and kunoichi, said Kakashi, displaying the genin while pulling out 2 bells. It will be your responsibility to retrieve these bells from me before the sun sets. With a cute little tilt of her head, Sakura said, Anyo, Kakashi-sensei, there are only 2 bells. I'm glad you noticed. That's because only 2 of you will get the bells and the last one of you will fail, he called, his voice a little too amused. What? Sakura and Naruto yelled, but Sasuke tensed and gritted his teeth. Kakashi laughed in his mind, wondering if he was letting Enko rub off him too much. There we go. Such cute reactions from the little genin, he thought. Nevertheless, Naruto was the one who calmed down the fastest. After his outburst, he took in all that had been said thus far and quickly concluded that the test was about teamwork because I've never heard of a 2-man cell before and he's trying to turn us against each other, which means the true meaning behind the test is to not do that. However, that is unfair. Sakura sobbed. The 3 genin were tense as Kakashi's single visible eye turned deadly serious. He fastened the bells to his hip on the opposite side of where he kept his Icha book before looking directly at his students and saying, let me clarify one thing. You're aspiring kunoichi and shinobi. I'm not sure what you specifically learned in school, but in the real world, that means that nothing is fair. If you give your adversary a good fight in general, they won't care if they choose to kill you. Their top goal will be to murder you and everyone you care about. He leaked ki that affected Sakura and Sasuke, but Naruto had to swallow at the tone and aura even though he was not affected by the ki. His words made them shiver. Now, if you're serious about passing this test, if these bells are really what you want, come on, you want to kill me. If not, perhaps I'll make sure you realize how useless it is to have half-baked ideas like fairness. Even though he could tell Sakura had hid under the brush just outside the clearing, most enemy ninja would have missed her if they weren't actively looking for someone. He was impressed that they understood his words were the start of the test and that they all appeared to hide themselves fairly well. All 3 genin vanished as he finished speaking. As was taught to all leaf nin, Sasuke had gone farther and hid in the trees. The trees, shrubbery, and foliage were all their best friends, and no leaf nin should ever lose a battle in a heavily forested area. Sasuke was deep inside a tree's leaves, and Kakashi would have missed him if it weren't for the first rustle of his entrance. But Naruto had vanished entirely. He asked half-heartedly as he looked around, where did he go? I guess being a prankster has its advantages. No wonder he was able to evade our shinobi most of the time. His stealth is amazing. It seemed strange to Kakashi to be praising the genin, especially Naruto. Having read his file and occasionally checked in on him, Kakashi had developed a mild distaste for the teenager, who knew who his parents were and initially wished to be involved in the child's life, but the memory of his former team and sensei kept him at a distance. Eventually, Kakashi stopped caring for the teen, believing that Minato and Kushina would follow suit, after realizing that the boy was nothing like his father and lacked the talent of either parent. Since he was unable to locate the boy, he wondered, was I wrong this whole time? Since he was aware of the Mizuki incident and didn't want to question the boy right after his first kill, the Jonin wanted to talk to Naruto about how he knew of his parents. He wasn't entirely sure Naruto would have just read about them and figured out who they were, but he was certain that such information was unquestionably classified and the Hokage wouldn't have been so irresponsible as to leave such documents on his desk while the village outcast was there. Kunai curved from the brush before he could think any more, and the slothful Nin replaced him at the last second by acting as though he had been struck. Kakashi sighed from the tree he shunshined to, and Sakura sprinted into the clearing grinning, believing she had won him over. As he watched the girls' faces change from bewilderment to horror at the log tainted with kunai, he thought, never rush in without confirming anything. I guess it's time to have fun. Sakura swiftly withdrew another kunai and assumed a ready stance while searching for her sensei. She was perspiring, hoping that Sasuke was close by and watching her back, and she wondered where Naruto had disappeared to. He escaped. I should have known he would see that coming. Pinkette froze when she felt a cold metal press against the back of her neck, and Kakashi said, "Hello Sakura. And you're dead. Do you want to give it another go?" The silver-haired Nin sighed again, realizing that the girl was too scared to do anything, and as he was about to knock her out, he had to jump away because more kunai were embedded in the ground where he was standing. The girl swallowed and shook instantly. "Sakura-chan, be quick." Naruto hurried in from the trees and yelled. Sakura looked around in confusion after hearing her teammates' voices, only to see Naruto attacking their sensei while brandishing two kunai in reverse. "And Naruto? Go look for Sasuke. He cannot be defeated by us alone." Over his shoulder, Naruto yelled. Seeing the intense expression on his face, Sakura was taken aback that he had saved her, but his words jolted her into action, and she hurried into the forest to find their final teammate. "Naruto, ma." Although he pointed out that the speed and force of Naruto's blows were no laughing matter, Kakashi managed to avoid them with relative ease. If he had been another genin or even a chunin, he would not have survived the barrage of steel. "You guys said you can't fight me alone, but here you are doing just that. Please, I'm not a moron. My sole purpose is to divert. Who said I'm Naruto, anyway?" For a brief moment, Kakashi was bewildered before the clone started to glow. His eyes widened as he realized it was a clone, but it lacked the chakra signature one would expect from a shadow clone or something similar. Worse, he tried to jump away when the clone burst, but instead of a fiery explosion, a huge gust of wind blasted outward from where it had just been. The wind tripled Kakashi's backward momentum, sending the Jonin hurtling into the forest where it crashed into a boulder, which cracked upon impact and sent the Jonin to the ground. The area where Naruto's clone dispersed appeared as though a concussive bomb had gone off within a 20-meter radius, and trees lay broken into pieces in his trajectory. What the hell was that? He coughed and held his chest, wondering if anything was broken. He would be shocked if nothing was broken after witnessing the devastation in front of him. Kakashi pondered, was that a wind elemental clone? When did he learn that? And how was it so powerful? He knew for a fact that he had undervalued the blonde, and if he truly wanted to unite his team, he might end up with his first passing team. Despite his pride, he had a job to do. After all, no matter how strong he appeared to be, one good egg couldn't save them all. Sakura was running through the forest when she suddenly realized she had no idea where Sasuke was, and she ended up running all the way to another clearing before pausing to catch her breath. "Are you okay, Sakura-chan?" Seeing his clone initiate the diversion, Naruto followed Sakura to meet her, dropping down behind her. He hadn't searched for Sasuke, but he could feel him close by, nearer Kakashi. "Naruto. Thanks for helping me back there," she said, pausing and frowning. "Why are you helping me anyway? I don't know where Sasuke-kun is. Are you attempting to bring Sasuke-kun to ruin?" Although she didn't fully believe it, she made the accusation. For a moment, Naruto was taken aback. "What? Hold on, do you really believe that I would do that?" Sakura regretted what she had said because of the tiny bit of rage that came into his voice. "Well, no, but..." The Pinkette flinched as Naruto glared at her, saying, "Look, just forget it. The goal of this test is probably teamwork, but I wanted you two fools to figure it out on your own. I assumed you would figure that out first because you're supposed to be the smart one." After hearing his words, she was certain that this wasn't the Naruto she believed she knew from the academy. Rather, this was someone who was taking their predicament seriously, which she needed to do. He was correct. She was supposed to be the smart one, but she hadn't approached the test with the mindset of a kunoichi at all. She didn't really know how to do it. "Well, then, what do we do? What happened to Sasuke-kun? The bells, what about them?" Naruto took a moment to collect himself before turning to feel Sasuke's feelings, and he immediately felt both astonished and amused, knowing that Sasuke had pursued their sensei and had most likely lost without a fight. He grinned a little, wanting to know exactly what had happened to the emo Avenger. The main clearing is where he is. Come on, we must get him and arrange for you to get 2 bells. Sakura paused after nodding, saying, wait, bring us the bells? What are you saying? If I'm mistaken about this test and one of us actually fails and returns to the academy, I'd rather it be me, Naruto said, turning to face her with a bored expression. As I mentioned yesterday, we don't have to act like friends. Sasuke and you will probably get along better than either of you will with me. In addition, I have no doubt that I will pass the test the next time. He really thinks I hate him. The pinkette stood motionless in the clearing after he had finished speaking, but she did so at one point, and her statement during their introductions the day before didn't help either. She was still confused, not accustomed to this new Naruto, but not stupid enough to believe it was the same Naruto she used to denigrate, and the brief moments she saw of him fighting Kakashi were enough to convince her that he was already stronger than her. Haruno-san, hurry up, his voice called ahead, and even though she started to move right away, she couldn't help but feel sad that he hadn't called her Sakura-chan. Just as I thought. Another failure. Though maybe I can see if Hokage-sama will let me take Naruto on as an apprentice. I can try to make up for everything, Kakashi said, sitting atop a tree branch on the edge of the clearing and staring at Sasuke with only his head above ground. Sasuke-kun. Sakura's cry caused a number of birds to take flight, and when Kakashi's ears began to ring, he nearly fell from the tree. Oh my god, I should check to see if that girl's voice is a ninjutsu sound. The silver-haired Jonin scowled down at the clearing. Before kneeling on her hands and knees in front of him, he witnessed the pinkette sprinting in the direction of her beloved's head. Looking around for a glimpse of their blonde countryman, Kakashi pondered, where is Tweedledee? Where is Tweedledum? A glint of light caught his attention out of the corner of his eye, and he jumped away in time to see a kunai strike the tree with an exploding tag. Are you really going to kill me, Naruto? I know I said to come with the intent to kill. As he landed in the clearing, Kakashi called and turned to face the fallen, burning tree. With his 2 kunai in hand once more, Naruto sprinted out of the smoke, spinning and slashing at Kakashi, who was obviously trying to push him back towards Sakura and Sasuke. Unfazed, Kakashi withdrew 1 kunai to fight Naruto. Sadly, the experience gap was evident as Kakashi barely moved in circles as he deflected each blow, sending sparks flying as the blonde slashed after slash at the silver nin. Fuck, I knew he was going to be stronger, but to still be this much ahead of me even after becoming a Shinigami. Naruto swore in his head. The ex-Jinchuriki broke off the fight and started to flare through hand signals, taking a breath before firing a bullet of pressured air at the Jonin. Kakashi surprised them all by appearing behind Naruto and stabbing the kunai into the back of his leg, causing the blonde to cry out in pain and fall to one knee. Oh. Then you are the real one. Kakashi laughed and kicked Naruto in the back towards Sakura and Sasuke, pointing out that Sakura had somehow freed Sasuke from the ground and the two were getting ready to join the fight. I thought for sure you'd be another K's Bunshin. As he observed the 3, Kakashi placed his hands on his hips. Well, these bells won't take themselves, he mocked. Naruto was determined not to throw the kunai away and return his weapon to Kakashi, so he tore it from his leg and put it in his own pouch. Sakura informed me of your plans. Sasuke tried to whisper, I'm in as long as you keep your promise to give us the bells. Naruto nodded, sensing that the hole in his leg was already being healed by his chakra. All right. Then get us off to a great start. Before displaying his own hand signals, Sasuke grinned and said, Fireball Jutsu. He yelled as he shot their sensei a medium-sized ball of flames. On either side of the Jonin, Naruto and Sakura started running toward Kakashi along the clearing's edge as he flew. After a few hand signals of his own, the Jonin in question launched a water bullet jutsu at Sasuke's fireball, which not only smashed into Sasuke's chest, knocking him off his feet and sending him bouncing towards the clearing edge, but also completely dispersed the fireball. As Kakashi fired his jutsu, Sakura and Naruto began to move toward him. Naruto arrived first and continued to attack with a barrage of kunai slashes, but this time he tried to add kicks to the mix. Clever, but it shows he lacks actual skill. At least he isn't using the academy-taught taijutsu. Unlike her. Is he trying to adapt in the heat of battle? When Sakura eventually caught up and started using the basic academy style of taijutsu to attack where she could, he started to perspire. Every time Sakura overextended on a hit and Kakashi was about to punish her for it, Naruto moved in with a blinding barrage of slashes, and the two actually seemed to coordinate their attacks really well, pushing him slowly back towards the forest where Naruto destroyed the tree. This prevented the Jonin from attacking back because Naruto was proving just enough to prevent him from retaliating against the slower pinkette. Meanwhile, Sasuke had regained his footing and was getting ready for another assault. Right now, before launching a grand fireball jutsu at the fighting group, he yelled, and Sakura and Naruto leapt away in different directions as the fireball appeared to engulf Kakashi. "Have we gotten him?" Sakura inquired. As Naruto twisted his arm behind his head and held a kunai to the back of his neck, Kakashi said, "Not quite." "You're quite tenacious, Blondie," Kakashi said. "I assumed that a kunai to the leg would have temporarily incapacitated you." Naruto spat back, but he knew there was nothing he could do to change the situation. "I've had worse." Reminiscent of the report he had read a few days prior regarding the attempted murder of the former Hyuga heiress and the former Jinchuriki, Kakashi recoiled slightly at his words, but he did not let go and turned to face the other two. "All right. Let's make an agreement since I have you as a comrade. I'll give you both the bells if you let me handle him. Alternatively, you could attempt to save him and run the risk of one or all of you failing. And what will it be?" Sakura and Sasuke relaxed and exchanged glances before Sakura nodded quickly and started to approach Kakashi, saying, "It's obvious that we're going to take the bells. He is to blame for getting caught." "We told you not to hold us back yesterday," said Sasuke, nodding and folding his arms. "Just as I thought." They abandoned him without a second thought. This was a waste of time. The silver-haired Jonin clenched his teeth at his prospective student's words. He couldn't deny the hypocrisy in his own words regarding the blonde, but after his performance, he definitely wanted to take Naruto on as an apprentice. Perhaps he could even tell the Hokage to hold Sakura and Sasuke back until they could truly learn to work as a team. Sakura wore a cunning grin as she stood a few meters ahead of them and said, "Don't fix it if it ain't broken." Before she started to glow, she called. However, he felt Naruto twist in his grip and land a punch square in his face, driving his body into the ground, while he felt wires wrapping his body as he slid through the dirt. Kakashi was jolted out of his reverie a little too late, as Sakura exploded just as the clone Naruto did. Once more, he was subjected to massive G-force as the winds blasted him and Naruto back into the forest. Sakura held the end of the ninja wire in her fingers while holding the bells in her other hand. After completing his second spontaneous slide through the mud, he was tied with ninja wire and was staring at his three students. "Kakashi-sensei, you got it." Both Naruto and Sasuke held kunai pointing at the man's face as she called out and protruded her tongue. In retrospect, the Jonin was genuinely shocked and realized that he should have known the Sakura who had saved Sasuke was a clone because he didn't sense her chakra signature, just like with the clone, but he assumed that she didn't have much of it. Then, when the fake Sakura and Naruto were attacking together, they were too coordinated for an impromptu attack, and they had deceived him directly. Sasuke was their long-range support, while the real Sakura must have crept into position and set up the ninja wire trap. Kakashi abruptly vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving a log tied up in his place. That was marvelous. After putting his kunai away, Sasuke turned to face the clearing where Kakashi had appeared and muttered, "I'm really starting to hate logs." The three genin started to move in the direction of their sensei, and once they were in front of him, Sakura stood in the center of them. "All right, then. That was unexpected of you three. That was truly outstanding work from a recently graduated graduate." Although they grinned at his compliment, the three chose not to rejoice because they were aware of what was about to happen. "But as I mentioned at the outset, you can only pass two of you. Okay, Sakura. Who is going to get the second bell?" Sakura clenched the bells in her fist and then glanced at Kakashi, Sasuke, and Naruto. Neither team turned to face her, and she noticed that Naruto had a slight frown on his face. "You should shove your bells up your ass. There's no way I'm going to choose who to send back to the academy," she yelled as she threw the bells back at the Jonin, who caught them but gave the girl a startled look. "We have everything in order, so we will either succeed or fail together." Sasuke put his hands in his pockets and grinned, while Naruto put his hands behind his head and grinned at Kakashi. Kakashi looked at the three, holding their gaze as none of them seemed to back down, and did his best not to cheer for them. "Is that your final answer?" Sakura folded her arms and stomped a foot, and Sasuke's smirk turned into a glare, challenging him as well. Naruto's smile transformed into his foxy grin, challenging Kakashi to pull something else. "You all pass if that's the case." "Yes," Sakura and Naruto both yelled at once, and the pinkhead turned to embrace the blonde. "He promised not to let us down, Sakura-chan." As he caught her, he called. I was still concerned. Sasuke merely rolled his eyes at the two, but he still grinned. She sobbed in his arms, and a moment later, She ripped herself from his arms, glowing like a Christmas tree. Naruto also scratched his neck in embarrassment. In such a short time, they seemed like completely different people to who they were yesterday. Or even at the start of this test. I hope this isn't temporary, Kakashi said, grinning at the three and feeling proud of them. Once more capturing their interest, the cycloptic nin cleared his throat and said, yes, congratulations on passing and becoming a genin. And it appears that everyone understood the test's actual purpose. Cooperation. As you can see, Konoha does not have any two-man cells. Unless they are on reserve or an apprentice, genin is typically assigned to a three-person team. However, as a Konoha shinobi and kunoichi, you are even more responsible for the safety of your allies in addition to yourself. You three will be like family from now on. And never forget that people who disobey the rules are bad people. However, those who desert their allies are worse than shit. I was going to tie one of you to one of these pillars for not getting the bells, Kakashi said as he led the three to the three pillars Naruto had previously seen. However, I believe I'll be kind just this once. Since you didn't eat, I also brought lunch for everyone. Kakashi blinked at the sheepish looks as all three genin froze and turned away at the same time. Didn't you all eat? Sakura and Sasuke called simultaneously, and Naruto made a faceplant, saying, it was Naruto's idea. You assholes, so much for teamwork. He called to the two, but all three of them just laughed. Kakashi smirked on the inside but shook his head. It appears to be the most promising team yet. After giving them their food and explaining that they would be embarking on missions in a few days and that they should get ready for that, he dismissed Sakura and Sasuke and asked Naruto to remain behind. Kakashi-sensei. What's up? I wanted to discuss a few things with you yesterday, Naruto. But Hokage-sama has asked for both of us. And it will have to do with your heritage, he admitted. Though he had read a little about Whirlpool in one of the Hokage's books, Naruto had told a flagrant lie about learning about his parents through documents, and he felt a little screwed up about having to explain things to the Hokage because Shiki and Hikari didn't seem to want to help anymore. He nodded to his sensei without displaying his true feelings. All right, then. Set an example, Kakashi-sensei. The silver-haired nin gave a nod, and the two started walking in the direction of the third's office. Naruto moaned, perhaps I should just tell him the truth. In any case, Naruto knew the conversation would not be amicable.
This was it for today. To watch next part, subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. Till then, see you next time.